Good afternoon. I would like to welcome everybody to our Planning and Zoning Board hearing for Wednesday, October the 19th. Have a full panel today and welcome all those that are here. On our on our agenda today, we have a number of items. I have received a number of blue cards. If any of you wish to speak to any of the cases that are on the agenda that you've got a copy of, that would be the time to fill out a blue card and bring it forward if you haven't so far done so. We will be reading a consent agenda here in just a moment. And those items that are on the consent, we would need to receive the blue card before that is read. But here we go. Let's go through the review on this on our consent agenda, first of all. Before we continue, and Michelle, you're going to be reading that for us today. Let me just tell you the items that I have blue cards for, and you can make sure that we have accounted for these correctly. We have case 044. I'm going to go by. You've got that one. We've got 045, 046, and 50. Do we have another?
It's the same with 6A.
This would be 46. Correct. How are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, we've got good news for you. There is at least one item left on the consent agenda, and that is the minutes from our last meeting. So I'm glad everybody's okay with that. So with that, Michelle, would you like to read today's consent agenda, and then we'll go forward.
Item 2A is approval of the minutes from the September 20th, 2016 and September 21st, 2016 study sessions and regular hearing.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second? Okay, somebody got a second. All of those in favor, please vote. Okay, it passes unanimously. Congratulations, that's the easy part. So now, we would like to basically work through, we've got another one. Did we make it in time? We're still good. Okay. Any more cards coming? Very good. Well, let's begin with our first case this evening, and that case will be item 3A Z16-044 District 5, located at the east of the 200 to 400 blocks of North Power Road and south of the 6,800 to 7,000 blocks of East University Drive. I failed to mention this earlier, but this will be the process that we will go through as we go through these various cases. We will first hear from staff and their presentation. We will then turn some time over to the applicant. At that point, those cases where I do have blue cards, I will go through those individually and everybody have a chance to come forward and speak. Because we have a number of them, I would like to hold your comments to approximately 3 minutes. If it gets too lengthy, I will hold pretty staunchly to that request. So that having been said, let's go ahead and begin, and I'll turn some time over to staff to discuss this case.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to rezone and subdivide a 15.8 acre parcel from LC to RSL 2.5 PAD, also with a preliminary plat for Skyview. The location is south and east of the intersection of University Drive and Power Road. The applicant's proposing 83 lots with lot sizes that are approximately 37.5 feet by 77 feet deep. It is a small lot subdivision. They have provided it a subdivision that has an alley-loaded product, so it's going to have the houses facing public streets. In most cases, there's a couple of locations where they will be private drives, but they'll be built at a width commensurate with a public street or to allow parking on at least one side. The public streets allow parking on both sides. They do have an alley-loaded product so that back of the house with that alley is at the rear of the home. And so solid waste pickup would be along that alley way in the back. So that eliminates some of the concerns we've had over the years with parking on the public street, because we don't have to worry about collection day with the barrels on the street and that prohibiting additional parking spaces. So that parking will be available all the time versus a couple days a week where it becomes a problem. I know we have a number of people here to speak, so the applicant has complied with the general plan and the RSL design element. Staff has recommended approval with conditions, but I know there's a number of people to speak, so I'll let
Shall we
them
wait
speak,
till the
and
end
I'd
to
be
go
happy to
forward with that?
respond to anything that you need me
Okay.
to.
Well, very good. Thank you for that introduction. I'll now turn some time over to the applicant. If you would mind coming forward, and with all of those that will be coming forward to podium, please announce your name and residence.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Pugmire. My residence is 1465 South 174th Street in Gilbert, Arizona. I represent Highland Communities. I believe Michelle has given a good overview of our project. It has a long history we have a long history of ownership on this parcel. We've tried a number of different times to try and come up with some different uses, and this is the one that seems to fit the market best. We have some concerns from adjacent neighbors. There's a commercial piece to our north, and I'm sure they're here and they'll discuss some of their concerns, as well as there's a mobile home subdivision that is adjacent to us on the south and on the east. And I believe we've worked out most of our concerns with the mobile homeowners. I think most of their concerns are technical in nature, ones that we would agree to and are willing to accept as conditions, which I think they will propose. We certainly will accept those conditions. I think they would apply anyway in the technical review. The commercial piece of property, which is currently functioning as a church to the north, has a different set of concerns, and I don't know if you'd allow me a chance to respond to them after they present them. I don't know if that's
How would you like to do that?
I prefer doing that.
Let's
Prefer to respond.
go ahead and do that. We'll go through
If
the
that'd be okay,
various.
and I'll just sit down and respond and take any other questions the commission may have.
That would be great. And after you respond, then we'll turn some time over to the staff to add their comments as well. Okay, bear with me just a moment here. Got to find the right pile. Okay, actually, we have two that wish to respond and speak to this case. The first person is Todd Lutz, wishes to speak. He has not indicated whether he's in support of or opposed to, so hopefully we'll do that as you come to the stand. Actually, you are, here I see it, sir, you're actually saying you are in favor of the proposed conditions approval or the changes that were just presented? If not, just clarify for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow board members. My name is Todd Lutz. I reside at 11244 East Rembrandt Avenue in the city of Mesa. We are the owners of the adjacent development known as Las Palmas Grand. I represent Thesman Communities, owners of several communities in Mesa. Last year when this came up, the proposed development, we attended both community meetings by Mr. Pugmire and had let him know of some of our concerns just based upon the preliminary plans that were shown to us. I've outlined those in a hastily written letter today to you all. I don't know if it got in the package or not, nor whether you had time to read it, but really what it boils down to is that we got the packet yesterday with the staff comments as well as the plans. So we've had very little time to study those plans to see if our concerns were addressed or not. And so I have worked with Mr. Pugmire in the last hour, hastily putting together what we would like to see as conditions of approval assigned to this case in the hopes that we can work together to resolve some of these things, a few of which just simply don't work from an engineering standpoint. So that's really all I had to say. I would just like to request the board to, if possible, take those into account, as I just haven't had time to even address my ownership, let alone our residents on this.
Mr. Lutz, if you don't mind me asking, then actually you articulated those, you did communicate with him, and you came to some sort of agreement, and he's going to share those with us later when he comes back to the podium.
That's
Is that
correct.
So you're in agreement at,
Yes, the only caveat I put to that is that,
Okay.
being that this was just done in the last hour, I had represented to our residents, when this project first came up, we had a meeting of 250 residents that we held in a ballroom, of which many, many had concerns, and this was kind of the consensus of the concerns. And I had gotten them to agree that I would represent them rather than them showing up in mass down here and T-shirts and what have you.
so that was going to be my next question. So you're basically speaking as a representative of,
I'm hoping so, in that I haven't
your
been
mind,
able
okay.
to reach out to them. There's a couple here, and I've hastily, kind of reviewed what I'm agreeing to, but I do want you to know that this has all been kind of thrown together in the last 24 hours, so
well, thank you.
we'll continue to kind of work through it.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
The next person is Don Nace. Did I say that correctly? If you'll come forward. As marked on your card, you are opposed
Correct.
to the,
Don Nace, I live at 3429 East Indigo Circle in Mesa.
And I'm Matt Palperman. I represent Precision Management Partners, the owner of the commercial lot that is north of the proposed development. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Mr. Nace. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. We are in opposition to the proposed plat. Our main concerns stem mostly from the developments located north of the main road on the development. Our parcel is encircled about on three sides by residential development. This area is zoned as light commercial. It's part of, in the general plan, a neighborhood village concept, right? And the idea here is that it's a marketplace center for commercial activity and not necessarily for residential. We have on the site right now that Mr. Nace owns what used to be a restaurant, and it's been an event hall, and all of these uses have been common. Right now, it's rented as a church, but my client is in the works of fitting something larger and grander for that space and for the area around it for commercial development. And so this residential development, so close to what my client has already is using the property for, and what he intends to use it for in the future as he does his due diligence, is just too close. We have a lot of concerns about them, but our primary concern is that everything north of the road is a little bit too close to our commercial uses. One concern is that the plat as submitted does not account for the current entrance for our parcel. It's an established entrance, and it's already been noted in staff's conditions for approval. It was not accounted for in their submission, and so that entrance has been used for over a decade by my client and his predecessors in interest. And so that is one big glaring concern. But again, it's we've got residential lots on the right, on the left, and then what looks to be like a clubhouse abutting right up next to our structure. We have some, maintenance concerns. If they put a pool and a wall up there, is my client really going to be able to make necessary repairs? And certainly for the long term, is my client going to be able to have events there where music is played and perhaps alcohol is served? And can the board, if they decide to approve this plat as submitted, assure my client that he'll be able to continue to use that parcel in a way which it already has been used? And so I'll let Don take a moment. If there's anything else that you'd like to say.
I think that's the main part. We've had to adjust that property in different occasions. And having live music and serving alcohol and having events there has worked fairly well for us. We weren't close to residential. We like the fact that the residential is going behind us. We're not opposed to that. And in fact, that empty lot that's been back there for quite some time, is a drawing part for people in trouble. And so we've had to call the police on numerous occasions. And so to have this come, we're excited about it. It's just that if you look at where their street runs through, their main thoroughfare entrance off of Power, that's where the project should end. Anything past that, you're intruding on what is frontage, basically frontage onto University. I don't see how you can ever develop anything commercial in the future, and let alone if I would come back here and want to change my usage from which is an outreach program for a food bank right now. When their lease is up, do I go back and able to have in events with live music and alcohol serving? I think I'd have a hard time. So
Okay, very
that's our
good.
concerns.
Is there any questions by the board which we can address?
Well, that'd be fine.
I have a question.
Yes, go
So
right
just
ahead.
to clarify, I'm looking at the aerial with the overlay on it. How do you access? Like, I'm looking for the curb cuts in University. Do you access right now on University or off of Power?
Our access is off of New University on the northeast part of our parcel, right in the center.
You can see the curb cut, you can see it if you look. I realize the aerial's a little tough on it.
So our entrance would be on the lower left part of that, what looks like a park area next to the road.
There's a double entrance in there with a median in between it that has been there for close to,
Many, many years.
yeah.
Okay, and so that's
The
one of your
70s.
concerns with the plan then? It looks like they're not
As
showing it on
submitted.
showing that cross-access?
Right,
Okay.
they're putting a park over our entryway there.
We do not own the land from this part forward over.
Yeah, we
That's
have.
city property?
We have a prescriptive easement over the parcel
No.
on the north, and we don't have an established easement with Highland Communities parcel, but it has been a recognized, consistent use for over a decade.
Staff, can you address?
Absolutely. Board Member Sarkisian, the adjacent property that this gentleman owns is accessed through Mr. Pugmire's property. Staff did note that the access way was not retained in the plan that they showed, so we had stipulated that the applicant put that back into their site plan, so there's a condition of approval that addresses that continued access. It's a very unusual circumstance in that there's these long strips of property along University that landlock this area back in behind. So this access way has been there for, it looked like as far back as the 70s based on some old aerials I looked at, and they have been accessing through this. Mr. Pugmire, the applicant, has agreed that he's going to continue to provide that access point. That is going to be improved as part of this subdivision, and that property owner of the other piece that they go through has also provided a letter that they agree to that access to continue across her property as well. So it's a little muddled, but there's conditions of approval that accommodate those things. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have.
We
Any further?
appreciate that that's been addressed, and I think that was brought up early, and even Mr. Pugmire, we're all on the same base on that. The problem is you're encapsulating me in residential, and this is a commercial piece. So you're changing a commercial piece into part residential, part commercial, part residential, part commercial. It doesn't flow. That's just, you're going to inhibit anything going on there. It's been inhibited enough by the past 10 years of bad economy, but it's going to make it even worse. That's just our feeling on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, Tim?
If I can show you, this is what's there currently. That's what they're talking about, the access, do you see? Just,
Thank you.
Okay, in terms of the use, that'd be, staff, do you have any comments for that while they're up? Those were the two things were access, the project being too close, and the potential, their ongoing use.
Absolutely. Chair Clement, the neighborhood village designation in the general plan does allow for a higher density residential product mixed in with commercial. This property has been vacant for quite a bit of time. There are those access issues off of University Drive, which has made it not desirable for commercial development. So honestly, this is the first plan we've seen in quite a while on this property. As far as the use that for the property in question with the commercial building on it, they'd be able to use whatever is allowed in the LC zoning district and continue to do so on that property. What the applicants proposed to the south of that is the pool area with ramadas. There's not a clubhouse, but there is some landscaping and a ramada and a pool area adjacent to the development there.
Okay, thank you. You know, speaking to where you're at, I remember back in the day, I believe this was intended to be a regional mall site. Were you an owner back then?
No.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that many, many years ago. So, any other comments for the, Mr. Nace? Okay, if not, oops, go
Just a
ahead.
question for staff also. So when he's mentioning that previously there's food bank assistance or dancing or music or something like that, going forward, he's going to require additional use permits or revisions to those things? How would this residential being here impact if he wants, does he need those additional, or is he already allowed by right in his current zone to continue doing any of that stuff?
Board Member Sarkisian, he would be allowed to have any use that was allowed in the LC district. This property won't impact any of the things he'd be able to do on his property. He does have a non-conforming site, so there could be, if there was a change of use in the building, there could be some things that could be, perhaps a substantial conformance improvement permit because they don't have the same landscape setback new developments do, or parking landscaping, those kind of things. But that wouldn't be affected by this. Those same things would apply if he went to change the use of the building today and needed something, or was adding on to the building or something along those lines. The new development won't impact what he can do on his property. It would still be allowed to be anything that's in the LC district as long as he complied with zoning ordinance standards.
My question would be then, I have to go and get a permit to serve alcohol. That means the surrounding people in the communities can voice their opinion at it. I don't have that now. I don't have that requirement. So I will have that requirement, is that correct?
Correct.
That's basically why I'm here. You've limited my usage. My property will lose value. I think it's fairly easy to see.
Yes, Michelle, you had a comment?
So this is to staff. Then is a use permit required to sell alcohol? Is it part of what we do, or is it that a state requirement that the gentleman is talking about?
Chair, Board Member Dalkey, that's primarily a state requirement on their separation issues that they would then be subject to. And we're not well enough versed in all those state requirements to answer in too much more detail.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Pugmire.
Thank you, Chairman Clement, members of the commission, members of the board, excuse me. I think I want to repeat, taken with Mr. Nace's concerns with his commercial uses, I want to repeat what Leslie has said, that I don't think our development will limit his uses, certainly not his legal capacity to use. I think what he's mainly concerned about is the marketability of any uses that he sees in the future. And I can understand him being concerned, who knows what the future will bring, but I don't think that's an appropriate reason to stop our development of our project. I think our project complies with all the standards that Mesa has put out there. I think it's a well thought out project, and I actually think will enhance his uses. My discussions with Mr. Nace, he told me that he intended, he hoped, don't want to put too many words in his mouth, but he'd hoped to turn this into an assisted living operation. And I think our product would actually enhance that. I think there'd be people that would want to be in that. So I think his question is more marketability rather than legal uses. The question I think that he brought up about access, I hope was adequately answered. The access to his piece right now comes through a piece of property from University Road to his east and north that's owned by Miss Heather Wagenhals. And Ms. Wagenhals has met with me and accepted the responsibility to provide an easement for us and for Mr. Nace. When I met with Ms. Wagenhals, I told her that I wanted that easement to apply to us and to the church to the food bank outreach. So that easement is not in place yet. She's willing to put it, but we tried to work with the staff to get the proper language, and we don't have that language yet. If we'd have had it, we'd have had the easement in place by now. But Ms. Wagnall has agreed to provide that easement and actually accepted consideration already. We've already paid for the easement. So I think that'll provide the access that the commercial piece of property needs. And I think that it satisfies me that Mr. Nace, I understand his marketability concerns, but I don't think it should keep us, should hinder the development of our property. When it comes to to Las Palmas and those residents, I think all of their concerns are, almost all of them, I agreed with, I thought they were pretty valid. They were listed in an email. I thought they were very valid. I thought that they should all be addressed during our technical review and have agreed with them on all of those. He asked for a little bit of a change to our parking requirement. I did not agree to make that a stipulation. I think our parking already satisfies City of Mesa standards. But the rest of the questions that he raised, I thought were very legitimate, and we would agree with those as conditions. And even if they're not conditions, we would still agree, just on the record, to say that those conditions need to be satisfied, even if they're not conditions of the approval. And I think I've addressed it. Any other questions that I don't want to take any more time?
Board members, any
Need-
questions?
Can I ask one other?
Yes, sure. Tim.
And I think I asked staff before, the effect of going to light commercial to residential, the effect on the schools in the area. Did we get a more, I can't remember if you responded yesterday or not. I can't remember what the answer was. What's the effect going to be on the schools, and how are we
Board
going to
Member
make sure
Boyle, we do notify the schools when we send out these subdivisions. Staff did not hear anything from the schools on that. Typically, an area like this hasn't had any new subdivisions in quite a while. The number of students that would be generated out of an 83-lot subdivision, just based on my experience in previous years, hearing from the schools and corresponding on these things. The number, once you break it out between elementary school, junior high, and high school, the numbers aren't significant, and the schools can certainly absorb the number, especially a district or an area in Mesa where there hasn't been a big influx in new construction. So I imagine that's why we didn't hear anything from the schools. They will be notified again as we go through the subdivision technical review process. They'll get another notification, so if we hear something, we will certainly respond to that.
Okay, so that's on them if they don't respond. Okay.
Typically, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any other questions from the board? Would you also respond then to the additional conditions?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I believe most of the comments made by the commercial property I've addressed. I wanted to respond to a couple of things that Mr. Lutz had raised. Regarding some of the conditions of approval, we do have a subdivision technical review process where we take through the final grading and drainage plans and those things to confirm that, you know, they're not going to have any retaining walls and they aren't going to cause any grade problems for the adjacent subdivision or adjacent neighborhood. The other thing I wanted to point out is this is a rezoning case, so your recommendation will go on to City Council. So there is another public hearing option if Mr. Lutz's residents were not comfortable with these conditions of approval. The introduction to the plan or to the City Council would be November 21st with a public hearing on December 5th. So that gives quite a bit of time for discussions between the owner and the residents in that neighborhood. I'm not sure if that's sufficient for Mr. Lutz, but I wanted to at least point that out, that there is an additional public hearing and an opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you, Ms. Davis. I appreciate that. So
Oh,
board-
may I add one thing?
I'm sorry.
Also, the conditions of approval that I had mentioned in the study session, I have provided you with a copy of them. So if it comes to that point where you decide to move forward with an approval, it's my understanding based on the discussion here that those conditions should be added.
Okay, so I do have a question for you, and that is Mr. Pugmire has agreed to those, I'm assuming, as the applicant, and also Mr. Lutz has had an opportunity to review that and is in an agreement. Is that my understanding?
I provided them at the beginning of the meeting to him.
Okay, I hear
so-
a nod. I was just wanting to reconfirm that we don't have any issues there. That's the way I interpret that, okay.
I do have one question to Mr. Pugmire.
Right ahead.
There are two homes just east, across from the swimming pool that seem to be backing up directly to the commercial space. Are there any concerns that you have, or I see that if there was any residence, there is no buffer there? There's just look like maybe there's a wall. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Intelligently, no. Board Member Chairman and Board Member Duff. No, that's just one of those we have assumed that is not as a luxurious a setup as the rest of them. It's just less desirable. And I just want to speak very honestly and bluntly. No, we haven't thought about those two units except to say they're close. They have some advantages and they're closer to the amenity, and they have the disadvantage that right now they're backing up to the back side of that restaurant or church or whatever it is. And
Okay, thank you.
yes.
All right. Any others?
Can I ask you another one?
Tim, go right ahead.
I'm thinking about the garages and anytime there's, something being changed by a couple feet or inches or whatever, I'm always really curious about it because I spend a lot of time designing houses too and trying to fit it within the specifications in there. What's the hardship that we're trying to overcome here that would allow reducing that setback for the 2 feet?
Our original submission, excuse me, Commissioner. I keep calling you Commissioner. I'm sorry that the Board Chairman Clem and Board Member Boyle. Our standard garage was submitted with a 20 by 20 dimension. And there are a number of pickup trucks that really are 19.6, 20-foot-6 that would have a hard time fitting 2 of those in a garage. And that's been to our attention. We built this product before, not this exact product, but of the same kind of a layout. And what we've done is we've lost sales to those people who need pickup trucks, and they don't fit in a 20. They need a 22-foot deep garage. What we have done is we built this product with a layout with only a 2-foot apron instead of the 4-foot apron. And so when the objection came from the Las Palmas homeowners for us to provide a 22-foot garage, we said that would be good market-wise if we could reduce it and fit it. And so if we reduce that 4-foot apron between the house and the alleyway, that would allow us to extend the garage to 22 feet and allow for the pickup trucks and some SUVs that are a little bit longer than others. And having that reduced 2-foot, we know that works. We built the same product with a 2-foot apron in an alley loader product in Gilbert called Higley Park, and it was very successful and had great utility.
So then to staff, will this mean that other people can get this same 2-foot forgiveness, 2-foot allowance, whatever, in the future? They can base on that, and it's going to slowly kind of morph that direction?
Chair Clement, Board Member Boyle, this is a 1-foot increase from what, it's a 2-foot increase from what he had shown, with the 22 feet. But the zoning ordinance for an alley-loaded product says 13 feet from the center line of the alley. This would put him at 12 feet from the center of the alley, so it's a 1-foot change from what ordinance standard would be to allow this. It was a last-minute request by the neighborhood adjacent to have the larger garage. Staff had been supporting the 20 by 20, which is probably the majority of Mesa. Our code changed in 2011 to establish a garage size. Before that, we didn't have that, but 20 by 20 was kind of the builder's standard. It still is in most communities around the valley, and I'm sure elsewhere, but our code bumped it up to 20 by 22, and then the applicant did agree to provide that. Staff is supportive at this last minute, but with the alleyway and the additional setback, I don't think we have significant concerns about a 1-foot increase. Could it open up for somebody else to come in with a similar request? That's entirely possible. I think it is justified by the level of quality that the applicant's provided with his product. It is nicer than we've seen in some of the other RSL subdivisions that have come forward. So staff is supportive of the change.
And so is that a normal way? If it's a more beautiful project, you're more forgiving on certain elements just to get better quality product in the city?
Board Member Boyle, the zoning ordinance establishes through the PAD, if they want deviations to zoning ordinance standards, there needs to be things that they've done to upgrade it from from a basic subdivision. They need to give us additional amenities, additional, enhancements throughout the neighborhood. They've exceeded their open space requirement. They've provided very nice amenities, landscape plan, additional detailing on homes than what was required. They've provided additional plans as far as the variety of the mix of the housing that they'll have. So they've done a number of improvements to the subdivision to justify the PAD. This would be one additional thing to consider as part of that. So I guess it would be up to the board to decide if they feel that they've done enough to justify that PAD overlay and this additional deviation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may add just a little bit to that in response to Board Member Boyle. And as we look at modifications such as this, we are looking for the practicality also and what precedents might be set and will things still function? And again, because we have traditionally for many years done the 20 by 20 garage, while we think there are problems with it, and that's why we changed the code to the 22, because vehicles have gotten longer and things haven't fit as well. Again, given the overall nature, smaller lots, smaller house sizes and so forth, we were okay with going to that standard for some of the garages. We're glad we're able to go ahead and extend some of them out to the fuller code and do a different deviation in terms of the setback in this particular location. So it is a negotiation process looking uniquely at the specific site.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wesley. Are there any other questions? Thoughts? All right, I will, thank you, Mr. Pugmire. I will entertain a motion at this point.
Do you want discussion or just?
I guess we can. Would we like to discuss this between ourselves? We sure can. Thank you for bringing that up. Or we can discuss it after the motion. It's either way.
Well, I just thought everything is addressed for the neighbors. I thought the applicant did a great job. And then I think as far as the access for the property to the north, looking at what's existing in there, I think it's a great access for that commercial because instead of having just a single entrance, it's a more pronounced entrance for them and neighbors will come through there and it's actually kind of increases their visibility. So I don't think they'll have a problem with that. And I think staff was great at addressing the concerns about future uses. So I'm in favor of the project.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Any other thoughts? Sam?
I'm concerned because in a little bit, we're going to have another garage that's going to get smaller that we've already looked at. There's another project with garages now getting smaller. So if we're talking about garages needing to get bigger, and then we're talking about garages trying to get smaller, I'm hitting some disresonance in my head. And that's where I'm a little unsure what to do.
That's fair.
I just, similar to the most recent comments, it seems like each case has unique attributes. So more directed toward this case, I'm also in favor, and based on the current circumstances, I feel as though we'd have to look at each one separately as it relates to the size. But yeah, I think I'm clear as to all of the concerns.
So basically you're in favor?
Yeah.
Of the motion, of the proposal? Any other thoughts?
I am in favor of the project also. I understand the neighbors' concern about future use and maybe some issues with the neighbors if you choose to have a business that sells alcohol. But I think Mr. Pugmire's point is good in that we don't have a legal, I mean, it's not in our purview here. What you're doing is legal. What you have an opportunity to go to the neighbors at that time and work with them on that issue. I think the project is great overall. The good thing about the PAD zoning is that we can look at it on a case-by-case basis, so I don't necessarily think it's setting precedent. It doesn't mean everybody can do that now, so staff will be able to look at it each time a development comes in, and we'll also be able to look at it as well and decide if it makes sense for that particular project.
That's why we're here, right?
Right.
I hope. Anybody else? Yeah, the other thought I would have on that is, this dates me a little bit, but I actually, as a real estate appraiser, remember praising that whole piece as part of what was going to be a regional mall site prior to the extension of the 60 into Superstition Springs Mall that's there now. And so through the years, I've always kept my eye on that, wondering what would happen to it. And so I too, with the opinion, this looks like a good use for the site. And I don't see any issues for the commercial use of the building that's there right now. I think it'll be an enhancement to the area personally. So having said that, I will entertain a motion if someone's ready to make one.
I'll move to approve Z16-44. And may I also add the plat to that? So Z16-44 in District 5, the 200 to 400 blocks of North Power Road and south of the 6,800 to 700 blocks of East University Drive, rezoned from LC to RSL 2.5 PAD and site plan review, as well as make a motion for approval of, let's see, it's 5A, companion case Z16-50, which is also, this is site plan review.
No, it's going to be item 4A, the
Approval with
preliminary plat.
conditions stated, as well as, do you want me, the additional 8 through 12, did you want me to read those into?
As long as you say reference them, the additional stipulations.
The
8 through
additional 5 stipulations agreed upon with staff and the applicant.
And the other item would be referencing the preliminary plat for Skyview, which I believe is now item 4A on the agenda.
Oh, okay, so it's, so not Z16-50, but the companion case, Skyview. 4A.
Okay. Are we good with that, staff, with the motion?
So approval of Z16-44 and companion case 4A with preliminary plat and additional stipulations 8 through 12.
Okay, I think sounds like we got it. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Those that are here for that case are now dismissed if they'd like to leave. We'll now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 3B, case Z16-0. Wait. Yeah, that came off. C16-045, District 1, 3400 to 3500 block of East Thomas Road, located west of Val Vista Drive, south side of Thomas Road. The request is a rezoning from LC pad to RM-2-pad, and amending partially of the Lehigh Crossing DMP to allow multiple resident development rather than unspecified limited commercial land use. Okay, the current recommendation is approval with conditions. With that, I'll turn time over to Mr. Stedman to speak.
Chair, members of the board, this is a request for rezoning from LCPAD to RM2 PAD for an 11.34 acre site. It would allow multi-residential development, which proposes 118 units on this property. The PAD that is being requested in conjunction with this specific development would allow deviation from development standards in exchange for an increased quality of development, of the quality of the development, design and different elements that are added to the property. The applicant has worked with staff in addressing concerns about the site plan. The applicant's citizen participation report identifies working with the neighborhood and staff was aware of some initial concern by neighbors directly adjacent to this property, and the site plan has been revised to address those concerns. At this point, staff is recommending approval with staff conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stedman. At this point, turn some time over to the applicant to speak. Come forward. Provide us with your name and address, please.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brennan Ray, 702 East Osborne, here on behalf of the applicant, Next Metro Communities, who actually is the proposed developer. We are excited to bring a unique development to the city of Mesa and to the surrounding area, a development that is a lifestyle choice for people looking for alternative housing options in an ever-evolving housing market. The site that we're talking about, you're well aware of, and I can get into more details if this board would like. But very briefly, we are proposing a high-quality, one-story, predominantly detached rental casita community. It is not an apartment community, as people are prone to think, despite its rental nature. It has and combines the best of a single-family development, in that there are what we'll refer to as 4 walls of freedom. There's no one beside you, no one above you, no one below you, no one behind you, and you are, in essence, living in a casita. There are some challenges with this site to develop under its current designation of commercial, one of which is the mid-block location and the fact that there is no additional trade area north of Thomas Road. We believe that it is an appropriate transition between the Lehigh Crossing community that is south and west of our site and the future commercial located out on the intersection of Val Vista and Thomas. As Kim indicated, we've worked hand in glove with planning staff on the site plan to create a unique site plan, something that staff is comfortable with, that meets the city's standards and code requirements. We've certainly worked diligently with the neighbors, as Kim mentioned as well, to understand and address those concerns. And we believe that we've addressed all of the concerns that we've heard of. We're aware that some neighbors have turned in some cards tonight. Certainly interested to hear what feedback they have as well, because again, I can get into as much detail as this board would like. But from starting in June up and through the present day, we've had multiple one-on-one meetings. We've had someone out in the neighborhood knocking doors, talking to neighbors, getting feedback through them on multiple occasions. And again, if I need to, I can get into more details. At the end of the day, as staff has given you a thorough presentation in your study session, and your packet is well, has all the details. And again, I can go into as much details as this board would like. I'll defer to the chair and members of the board if you'd like me to go into those details. But at this time, I'm more inclined to kind of sit down and listen to what the neighbors have to say. And Chair, if it is possible, I'd like to have a couple of minutes for rebuttal. But we appreciate staff's recommendation for approval. We're okay with the stipulations 1 through 5 that are contained in staff's report. And we would request this body's recommendation for approval likewise. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, if I need to go into details about the development, I do have a wonderful PowerPoint presentation that I've put together that we can run through. But with that, I'll take direction from this board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ray. I do have one question. When you did your neighborhood reach out and your meetings, did you run into much opposition? Because initially this was on consent and it's being pulled from consent. And any thoughts in your mind, have those been addressed? In addition to what we will hear here in just a moment, I'll give you a chance.
Chairman, if you'll bear with me 1 minute. Hey, me. What is up on the screen there, and I believe it's on your monitors there, this is the current landscape master plan. And two of the main concerns that we heard initially dealt with how close our units were. Initially, you will see, if I had a pointer, I could somehow do it, but along our southern and western boundaries, when we originally filed the application, we had proposed a 10-foot setback. Now, recognize that each of these units have their own private rear yard, and so it wasn't open space. These are private rear yards that are backing up to it, very similar to what you would see in a single-family subdivision. And so when we first came in, we came in, as I mentioned, with 10-foot rear yard setback. We heard feedback from staff, and through our neighborhood work, heard that there were some concerns from some of the neighbors immediately adjacent to our site of the close proximity with what we are doing. We know that the Lehigh Crossing subdivision, their setbacks are 15 feet. And with the RM2, given the adjacency of the residential zoning, we were required to provide a 25-foot setback per code. And so since then, we've increased that setback to 25 feet, which is 10 feet greater than what those single-family residences are required to now. So we've done that. The other thing, which isn't necessarily the purview of this board, but what I will show you as well, is the housing product. That was something that when we initially came in, we had proposed a more modern take on the housing. It was a flat roof product. After hearing feedback from some of the neighbors as well as others, we went to a new pitched roof product where we have 3 different elevational styles. And we had our architect to drive through the Lehigh community and pick out various architectural elements on the homes in there to incorporate into ours. As best we knew, coming out of the neighborhood meeting and our subsequent neighborhood work, we believe that the changes in the housing product, as well as the additional increased setback, addressed all of the concerns. The feedback that we'd received, and if I need to, I can get our neighborhood consultant up as well, is that people were a lot more excited about a one-story residential develop as opposed to a commercial development, where obviously you have the ability to have truck docks, truck bays, big recycling dumpsters and the like behind, obviously where traffic can go. So I hope that answers your question, Chair, but I can tell you we've tried to address every concern that we know how. As we've gone throughout the process, obviously there are general questions about traffic, about property values, about renter profiles and stuff like that. And again, if I need to, I can get into more detail.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ray. Are there any questions for Mr. Ray before we hear from the public?
I just had one question, just for clarification from me. Okay, I'm looking at Plan 1, which is up here, showing the two-door entries. So there is options where they're attached, or? Because I'm not seeing them, there's only a couple of places on the site plan, I guess. So there are, like, that's, what is it, a single bed, 1 bedroom or something, and it's attached? Okay.
Through the chair, Board Member Sarkisian, I believe this exhibit will be able to explain it.
Okay.
We do have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The 1 bedroom units, approximately 623 square feet. It didn't make sense to have a 600-ish square foot standalone building. And so for economies of scale, the 1 bedrooms are combined into a duplex, if you will. The 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms are all standalone.
Okay.
Unlike a traditional apartment complex, 2 and 3 story, where you're heavy on 1 bedrooms, okay on 2s, light on 3s, this development is the inverse of that, in that we're solid on 3s, solid on 2s, and light on 1s.
Okay. And it looks like even though everything has their own individual backyard, like you mentioned, so even the 1 bedrooms, even though they're attached, they're separated, and it's kind of like a individual home.
Through the chair, Board Member Sarkisian, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else right now?
I'd just like to state what a tragedy that you had the option of modern and then you didn't do it. You got to be brave, man. If we're going to change the world, you just got to ignore the hecklers.
Through the chair, Board Member Boyle, thank you.
I had a question that stems from the study session yesterday. I'm just curious what your thoughts were. Is there any intentions, or was this pre-designed, even though not currently done so? And what was the correct word?
Condominiumized?
Condominiumized.
It's not a real word.
Slip of the tongue. My intentions were, no. I don't think much of anyone else picked that up. But yes, is there any intention to turn this into our potential to turn this into some sort of a for sale project at some point in the future? Will it always exist as it's being presented to?
Chairman, Next Metro manages and has approximately 1,000 units in its portfolio, all of which are all rental. Next Metro would not condominiumize, which I believe is a good word, and it has no plans to make this a for sale product.
The way it's been designed, though, could it be at some later date? Do you have that knowledge or information?
Chairman, I suppose it could be. Anything is possible. We're all familiar with the condo conversions that took place during the
You know
last
where I'm-
downturn in the market. I'm sure that it is possible. I am not smart enough or savvy enough to know what steps that would need to go through, not only from an engineering perspective, but maybe possibly a planning perspective or other types of things that
Okay,
would
thank
need to
you.
do that.
All right. That doesn't have any bearing on my decision. I'm more curious than anything else. But- Okay. with
Can I
that-
ask about that? Is that, I wasn't here when that happened. Is that a bad thing when something condominiumizes? Like in New York, we call it going co-op, but is there some issue with that?
Well, you weren't here. I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, I mean, this can happen later, but.
You know, actually, you probably talk to half this audience and ask them what happened to their wealth during that period of downturn, you know? Yeah. It was pretty ugly for a lot of us, so, and that was part of it. Anyway, thank you so much. Sorry for the levity. Well, let's go ahead and turn some time over to the public. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two cards on this particular case. The first one is from Mr. Thomas Bettino. He is opposed to the project. If you'll come forward and speak, cite your name and address.
Embarrassing. Didn't expect to go first. Yes, like my card. My name is Thomas Bettino. I'm residing at 3547 North 34th Street, Mesa, Arizona, 85213. I am opposed to the project. I'm not so much opposed to the rezoning portion of it. I am opposed to this particular project, though, because of the, in part of what they've given as their sales pitch. It is to be a no-frills landscaping, and also a community where basically the owners aren't in any control or need to be in control of their property. So the idea that they're going to upkeep it is pretty much written off. They don't have to care for it like a homeowner does. It's backed up to them. Another piece of that is that, you know, this is part of a community, and they're backing right up to ours. We want them to be of the same design, which they somewhat got with their revamp compared to the square 18 feet tall boxes that they had before. We just want it to be part of the community, so we're not so much, I'm personally not so much opposed to the rezoning. It's just this particular project I don't think fits the neighborhood or Mesa, and especially this portion of it. There are, my home is worth about $300,000 currently, and if you go on into the community further, they get up around $500,000 and more, and there are other homes going up and other homes in much higher brackets. Ooh, excuse me, I'm a little nervous. Public speaking is not my forte. But as you go into these other communities, they're immediately surrounding this area. They're in much higher brackets. Much higher values. And the numbers that these guys are putting up, $35 million to build this development, that's roughly, I worked it out to about $3.2 million per acre. The numbers just don't make sense for what the actual, the product that they're creating. So I'm just not sure that it's right fit for this community. Maybe certain parts of Mesa, it would make sense, just not this particular one, especially near the groves and other portions that are of just kind of a different caliber. Another piece that I would like to talk about is, you recently approved an apartment complex that's going in across the street. So that's going to have a drastic impact on the immediate area as well. As you know, Thomas Road is kind of a two-lane road. So now we're having many more people come into the area that are going to have a huge impact. So we want to see, I would prefer to see how that impacts the area first before we start building and building and building more. Because we also have other houses in the development already approved being built as well. So the change in the area is going to be pretty drastic, especially as these houses go up. So I'm not so much opposed to the rezoning. We knew it was a reality that it could be, especially because it's such beautiful land. We would love to keep our property values where they are. I think this will degrade them. I'm certainly not opposed to that. I've heard upwards of 20% that we could lose our property values. But I am opposed to this particular project just because it's not of the caliber of where we are in this particular area of Mesa. So I'd like to see you guys continue, pushing for a higher standard in this area, as you've done with the Lehigh crossings. That includes Settlers Landing and a couple of others. I believe that's my time.
Thank you, Mr. Pino.
Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you. I'd like to give some time to James. Thank you. And you are opposed to the project as well?
Yes.
If you would give us your name and address.
Yes, my name's James Lazarowitz, 3426 East Riverdale Street, members of the board. I'm just here tonight. I'm not really good at this. This is the first time I've ever had to do this, so I'm gonna be nervous. I just basically kind of typed some stuff up to sort of kind of recite to you. Just like the gentleman before me spoke, they are rentals, all right? They're not, I'm not opposed necessarily to the rezoning either. Residential's fine. I'd like to see homes. I'd like to see people who are invested in the area. They want to be able to live in a community where they own their properties. Typically, when you have rentals, you have people who are living in those areas who are less concerned with the surrounding neighborhoods. It'll be a continuous roll of the dice of the type of neighbors that you'll be having over your back fence. I am directly up against that fence. Well, it's fair to say these rental properties are a lesser of two evils compared to a certain commercial business, let's say a gas station with high traffic. We should attempt to push for better developers and basically homes, proposing homes with decent lot sizes like we have. Quality of life potentially could go down. Potential of college kids with little concern for families in a residential area. Noise and traffic, even crime, potentially could increase. We already have 300 apartments going in across the street that have already been rezoned, the property's been approved for. So that was my next point. And it's possible that property values could be negatively impacted. Again, we don't have homes that potentially will be raising in value and coinciding with that raise in value. These will be rentals. From an emotional standpoint, who here who's from Lehigh, if I may ask, by raise of hands, would have thought twice about this the purchase of their home if they knew that their houses were going to be backed up to rentals? Raise your hands. Okay, well, that's all I've got right now. Oh, there's a gentleman over there. I did speak to some of my neighbors, and a lot of them are still relatively opposed to the idea. They were busy tonight. I tried to convince them to come. I did what I could to get them here. I did speak to a woman who actually didn't even know there were rentals going in across from behind her property, and so there's still some gray area with some of my neighbors who are specifically on that fence, and you know, maybe they're first-time home buyers and they don't know the impact. I came from the town of Queen Creek, and it was, you know, we watched it degrade quickly. What benefit do I get from the proposal? They benefit by obtaining a large profit because they are located next to a nice new neighborhood. What do I get in return? Benefit versus burden. Isn't it convenient that the last homes were built in the corner of the neighborhood, but that this proposal was pushed? Did they wait for the good nature of us home buyers to be fully implemented before pushing forward? We're concerned about that. Would the city council want this for themselves, especially if their backyard wall was directly impacted by such development? That's all I got.
Okay, thank you for sharing those feelings. Any questions?
Just a question, were there public meetings? Maybe I just don't remember, and did you know about this? Was this the first time you had a chance to kind of speak and bring these
I
issues
did
up?
come to the design meeting. That was kind of the first I've ever even learned about how this process works. I spoke at the design meeting. I was in my work clothes, and I just voiced my concern about the overall design at that time. Once I kind of found out that was this, I'm opposed to the project, but since you talk about design, well, it'd be nice if we pushed it back, stuff like that. But I didn't, you know, voice my direct concerns at that time because I was told to direct it towards this meeting.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, James. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Okay. With that, Mr. Ray, I'll turn some time over to you.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. If I may, I'd like to talk about kind of our renter profile to kind of understand, because as I mentioned, this is not a typical thing, and I heard a comment, I believe, about college lifestyle and stuff like that. As I had indicated in my opening remarks, this is a lifestyle choice. People that come to this type of development do so because they are tired of home ownership. As you see, the statistics on our slide, and again, we're pulling these figures over 1,000 units, 40% of our residents are over the age of 40. Of that, 75% are actually women. We know that the average household income is between 75 and 85, 70 and 80,000. We have relatively few number of children. So this type of product goes towards people who choose to live here. These are people that could afford to live in the adjacent Lehigh Crossing, but because of various reasons, they choose not to. And that leads me to, in terms of kind of the maintenance issue, we heard a comment, these homeowners aren't invested. Well, I can tell you that the underlying property owner certainly is, and there is a property management company that will be on site to take care of things, including policing the rear yards. Even though they are private rear yards, our management company is responsible for the maintenance of those rear yards to ensure that they are clean and that things are upkept. Our management company even goes so far as to collect trash. There's a valet trash service that comes 5 days a week, that if people place it out in front of their doorstep, our guy picks it up and dumps it and takes it to the 4 dumpsters that are located throughout the site. So I think that addresses some of the concerns as far as the type of people that are here and what we would anticipate from a maintenance standpoint. With respect to fitting in, as I indicated and as I flashed up on the screen, we had our architect drive through the Lehigh Crossing community. And if you were to drive through that community with our elevations and look at their buildings, you would see similar features in terms of the pitched roof product, which is why we wanted to do it, with some of the details between the ranch and the other architectural styles. And then the last point that I heard brought up dealt with an apartment complex that was to be built not in the area. If you look on this aerial, there's kind of an odd-looking shaped site that's to the north, and I'll defer to staff. I believe that John Wesley has quite a bit more knowledge on it, but it's my understanding that that particular piece to the north is not, it is zoned GI, which is general industrial. General industrial zoning would not allow a multifamily or residential development to go in there. It is designated on the general plan as neighborhood village center and neighborhood, which is a little bit similar to the designation that we have on our side and that we're neighborhood village center. So as to the best of my knowledge, there are no other apartments that are approved in the area. And that if someone were to develop that property north of Thomas with apartments, they would need to go through the proper, file the proper applications and go through a public hearing process. But again, I'll defer to staff on that. I believe, I think I'm right, but I'll certainly defer to staff on that.
Why don't we just ask some staff, do you have a comment?
Chair, board members, several years ago, there was a major general plan amendment that came through that did approve multi-residence general plan designation on that property for an anticipated apartment complex. That did not come to fruition. It did not get rezoned for that development, and we have subsequently updated the general plan so it no longer specifically allows for the apartment complex, although one still could come in there. But it would have to go through the whole rezoning process.
Just like this?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I believe there are some other things, but I believe those are the main points that were, that I could pick up and glean from the two neighbors. Again, I can, apologies for getting there.
Well, Mr. Ray, while you're pondering, can I just ask you a question? I'm very familiar with this concept. I've been involved with some projects, and I believe you have, what, you have 5 or 6 or so of these, or more or less. What is the number now, if you don't mind me asking, out of the ground?
Brian Rosenbaum with Next Metro 27815 North 114th Way, Scottsdale. We have a project 100% leased up in Palm Valley, 2 under construction in Chandler, 1 in Gilbert, 1 in Queen Creek, and 1 about to start in Phoenix.
I believe demand has been pretty good. It's been well received, is that correct?
It has.
Can I ask a question? In terms of the rents, do you compete at the high end of the range, the low end, middle range?
We're at the very high end.
So that in itself would be discriminating to the type of tenants, users that you would attract.
Correct.
Is that your anticipation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I won't go into much detail, but that slide up there indicates all the neighborhood outreach that we have engaged as we've gone through the process. So with that, again, happy to answer any other additional questions that this board might have. But we would, again, reiterate our request for this board's approval in accordance with staff recommendations and the conditions of approval.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions at this point?
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, any comments? Tad? All right.
Oh, I had a
Yes, Tim.
I had a question to get to. Okay, just as I'm trying to kind of put all this in my mind, when you started your presentation to us, you said this is not an apartment community. So that's another phrase that I've just learned, like condominiumized, apartment community. And is apartment community, is that a derogatory term that we need to be aware of? And if you brought it up that that's not what this is that the reason that there's a perception that there could be this 20% drop in land values that the neighborhood has? Like, what would be the issue there? And I guess the larger question would be, you know, if this was coming into your neighborhood, what would your feelings be about it?
Through the chair, Board Member Boyle, I want to make sure I understand your questions. And the first is,
What makes this not an apartment community?
So
That's the phrase you used.
there's a really long answer that I could give you, but the short answer is that there are in some people's minds, an apartment is considered a four-letter word. I believe that a good fair number of us have lived in apartments at some point in our life, but we may have forgotten what that apartment life was like as we have now moved on and live in other locations. And so there is sometimes associated with apartment a stigma that apartment complexes are potentially seedy places that will lead to crime, drugs, deviant behavior, and stuff like that. That's on one scale. On the other hand, a lot of the apartment communities, and I work with a lot of multifamily developers that do apartments, the ones that are going in today's are high-end. They have resort-style amenities. They are very luxurious. And I believe that the demographic and the trends are showing that there are more baby boomers actually that are looking for a rental lifestyle. And so it kind of depends on your perspective, how you view the word apartment. Certainly, if I've picked up on your comments, you're from the East Coast. It's very different, as you know, from being out here, what an apartment is considered and how it is viewed. With respect to my personal feelings, I don't believe they have any bearing on the decision that this board makes. I will tell you that if I was an adjacent homeowner, I would certainly want a development like this as opposed to a commercial, as opposed to an office-type development, because like a single-family community, our backyards are against their backyards. And that's the same situation that you see in multiple communities throughout not only Mesa, but through Maricopa County and elsewhere. And so it is a good use of the property. It does take a challenging site under its current entitlements and make it viable. And we believe that this will become actually a good thing for the area and will allow it to continue to develop and flourish as people have envisioned Lehigh Crossing to do.
Okay.
I was just going to ask you, what's the density going to be? I don't recall. I didn't.
The density is 11.8.
And so you were talking about you represent these other apartment developers. What are those densities typically like today?
Typical, they're all over the board depending on the developer that you're working for. I think a safe bet to say is 18 dwelling units plus, depending on the location. Obviously, if you're in an urban infill location, you'll get as high as 50 units to the acre. It just varies by location.
And the fact that they're single level has a big impact as opposed to a two-story apartment project overlooking that.
Through the chair, absolutely correct.
I think that's really what you're trying to say. There is a difference. It has the look and feel of single level. I thought I saw some other hands or any other comments. Okay, it sounds
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, at this point, is there any discussion before?
I just wanted to add a personal experience for this. I have lived in not this developer, but a product like this. And, you know, he mentioned the rental rates on that. I mean, this was quite a while ago, 15 years ago. And at that point, I mean, our rents were for a two-bedroom unit were $1,000 plus, which is a pretty good amount. I mean, that sometimes you'll get that for a single family home. And then we were there 4 years, and I know people that were there even longer. I mean, we had the intention, we loved it so much, it was just so easy because they did maintain the backyards. They came in and added new Gigi to the backyard, maintained things, took care of any kind there was a tree down. I mean, all that stuff that as a homeowner, you know, a storm strikes, you're like, oh, no, I don't want to do this. They maintain all that stuff. We had great neighbors all the time, never had any problems. And I think also the fact that it's a gated and one story where you could possibly always have like a two-story behind you or something else. I think it's a great product. And anytime I've seen these, because I always thought they were unique and a neat product, an option, instead of going to the apartment complex, which does have, you know, sometimes a negative stigma, even though it's not always warranted, is just the fact that they're usually located in nicer areas where there's increased property values, and it's a high demand area that people want to be at. And actually, this is one of the areas that when I was moving to Mesa, I looked at because I love the smell of the oranges and all that stuff along Val Vista and stuff. But it's just, I think it's a demand that is going to increase. And even from the newer generations, like even my brother, he doesn't want to purchase a house, but he also doesn't want to live in an apartment. He wants something that's a happy medium, but he also wants someplace that he can have family and friends over and not be embarrassed. And so I think this is a great opportunity for the residents in the neighborhood.
Well, thank you for that thought. Anybody else wish to express a view?
I think it's a great opportunity. I'm just kind of sold on it. I don't think some of the concerns that the residents have about some of the problems that they might encounter on a regular type of an apartment complex, you're going to find at this one. So I think it's a good project, and I'm going to be voting for it.
Okay, thank you. All right, if anything else, I will entertain a motion at this.
I'll move that we approve case Z16-045 in District 1, blocks 34 to 3500 of East Thomas Road on the south side. This would be for rezoning from LCPAD to RM2 PAD, and amending the parcel E of the Lehigh Crossing DMP and allow multiple residence development rather than unspecified limited commercial land uses and a site plan review.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have.
Are there any stipulations or staff recommendations that need to be added to that movement?
Okay, so with stipulations, but also if you want to add oh, I'm sorry.
There's no
Wrong
associated
project.
plat on this one. Are there any added stipulations or things we need to add to this one? I didn't see anything. Okay, good to go.
Okay, so the second still stands. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next case is item Z16-049, District 3, the 2400 to 2700 blocks of South Signal Butte Road. Basically, this is modifying the Mulberry PAD, rezoning it from an RSL-2.5-pad and RM-2-pad to RSL-4.5-pad on 43.4 acres, et cetera. The current recommendation is approval with conditions. I believe this was pulled to provide some clarification. So with that, we will begin with a brief overview from staff and then
Chair, real quick, the handouts, could I get those back? They kind of moved around and I didn't end up with one. I just want to look through them again.
Oh, sure thing.
The plans specifically. I don't need all of them, just one or two sets.
There you go. Thank you. That's staff. If you'd like to present some comments.
Okay. Chair, members of the board, just for a clarification for the public, the board is looking at drawings that depict the houses that will be available on this subject parcel, which is parcel number 5 at the Mulberry whatever, community. Okay, so they're reviewing the houses that will be built there. So this is a request to modify the Mulberry planned area development overlay to delete one of the elements of that plan, which was to be multi-residential density housing on parcel 5. In place, there is parcel 5 will develop with the housing product and similar density to parcel 3, which is already being developed. People are living in those neighborhoods in the Mulberry community. So there's that modification to the pad. Then there is also a rezoning and site plan review for this, this development of parcel 5 within Mulberry. So the site plan has been attached to your packet for your review. The housing product that will be used here was used in parcel 3, and that's what's being passed around on the desk for review. And this request includes modification to the development standards of the RSL 4.5 zoning district. And so with RSL 0.5, there are specific setbacks, lot sizes. Most of those are being observed, and there are minor modifications to those standards. These are the same modifications that were approved for parcel 3 and which has developed. And so staff is in support of those requested modifications. What has been what was brought up as a question during the study session was an additional request to extend a pad modification from that parcel 3 into this one. And that modification allowed for garage widths in 2 of the plans being used on this in this parcel. 2 of those plans, instead of meeting the code specified 20-foot width for a garage, they have been reduced by 8 inches in width. So the garages have a 19-foot 4-inch width. And the applicant is requesting that that be allowed in this parcel as well. And staff is supporting that. It seems to have been working well. And at this point, of the 121 houses that have been built in parcel 3, 73 of them have been built using these plans that now have that, that reduction in garage width. Some of those were built before the modifications, some of them were built afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stepney, yeah, and if I might clarify, we actually pulled this off a consent because of the questions dealing with the width of the garages as proposed for some of those models, and so that would be the specific question I believe we wanted to address unless something else happens to come up. I'll turn some time over to the applicant, Mr. to share his thoughts.
Hi, Paul Dugas with Blandford Homes. Board chairman and board members, we're just requesting to be able to continue in the Mulberry Development Master Plan with that 19-foot, or not, yeah, 19-foot 4-inch garage width. We're still adhering to the 22-foot length, which is really the most important length in the whole garage issue, so that you can get, you know, F-150s and stuff in there. When we started Mulberry, Parcel 5 had the ability to have 511 units on it. We've come back, and on Parcel 5, we're asking for 163 of the Americana Collection conventional building, which has just made the neighborhoods to the south, just really excited about not having the possibility of apartments or townhomes or things like that. So we had come back and we had asked for a pad modification for, on Parcel 3 to allow to go from the already 20-foot wide garages to the 19-foot 4 inches. It was granted on 151 lots. So effectively, there could have been 151 of these units if everybody picked them. So what's happened is 76, there's been 121 built, and 76 of them have been that model home, you know, those two one-stories. Of the 73, I mean, 36 of them only have the reduced garage. So that's about 60% of that collection's sales are those two single-story models. So when I take, and you take the 163 units that are lots that are homes that are going to be on parcel 5, and you take 60% of that, there's a possibility of 98 homes that would be those two models. And when you add the 36 that have already been built with a reduced garage and then the new ones, you end up with a possibility in all of Mulberry, and this will be the final parcel in Mulberry, you end up with the possibility of 134 reduced garages, and even less than the 151 lots that were approved in parcel 3. So we feel we're still meeting the intent of that pad modification that we did. And what's happened is that 8 inches has just been put in the foyers. So the homes are still the same width. They're still on the same lots as everything else in Mulberry. It's just they have 8 inches less garage, and it was a request of homeowners and home buyers that the foyer was a little too small. So that got 8 inches bigger. In the future, as we leave Mulberry, we've already agreed with staff that we are not going to come in, and if we build this product in another area, it will have to change. But here at Mulberry, we just like to keep it the same in parcel 5. You know, it works, and we feel it's appropriate, and it meets the intent of that pad modification that we did.
Okay. So, Mr. Dugas, are you saying then actually going forward, do you have no intentions of doing homes with garages this narrow in?
No, it was only to fix a problem once we had already gone through an intensive review of the product and the development master plan and everything. As we leave Mulberry, if we were to build this product again outside of Mulberry, we would either have to make the product wider, make the lots wider. You know, we'd have to do something like that. Okay. So here, just finishing out Mulberry, we'd like to keep it the same as the pad modification that we already have approved.
I do have a question in terms of those that bought homes. Have you received any feedback about the size, other than the fact that like the foyers to be larger?
That's what it is. Nobody complains about the garage, and what we've really found is, again, the length of the garage is the most important thing, and it's a culture. Either people park their cars in the garage. We've had 20 by 20 garages forever in this valley.
Are there storage rooms?
And everybody, you either want to park your car in the garage, or you want it to be a storage shed. And I agree that the bigger garage makes it easier to have a little bit of storage, and we designed all the product at Mulberry to be like that, but then asked for this modification just for Mulberry. And we just like to continue it. And I think in the end, there's not going to be even as many lots as approved in the original pad modification that'll have the smaller garage.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions?
I do have some questions on the product. Now, are these units that are pre-sold, therefore you sell them and then you build them, or you build them and then sell them?
Most all of our homes from Blandford Homes are pre-sold. There are times where we build specs. We always have specs on hand because you want to have specs on hand so that people who want a faster move-in date can do that. So yeah, we do build some specs, but these are all built ahead. I mean, not ahead, they're all built after a sale, and we have models and everything like that.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
There was one other question I had about that. So the length of the garage is at code 22 feet, right? So it's just the width of the 8 inches that you're speaking of that is the short.
And there were 10
19
floor plans and 42 elevations at Mulberry, and as you can see on that street scene, it's a very diverse street scene. This is just 2 floor plans. It's those 2 single stories. And it really, when you drive by, you can't even tell the difference, you know, in the homes. I mean, if you're a builder or an architect or something, you may be able to pick it out. But it's a very small deviation, and it's just to to address the problem at Mulberry, and we have no intention of taking this product, and if we built a Mulberry 2, it would have to be different. But we want to keep everything the same as the original DMP on parcel 5, now that we're changing it to that conventional product.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
I'm fine with it. Now that I understand the reasoning and the hardship and everything, it's fine. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, sure, Michelle, you have go ahead.
Just a comment for staff. So you've been working with Blandford Homes for a long time, and I'm sure you're comfortable if he says this is the last project that he's going to be requesting in these kind of garages. I mean, I know it's taking your word for it, but you can always say, if he comes back, we told you, we set the standard before, we're not in favor of these smaller garages, or how else can you deal with this type of issue if it comes up again?
Or other builders.
Or other builders.
Well, we do handle it case by case. I have written it down. I will remind him that he said that.
All right, thank you for that. Anybody else? Anything to discuss before I call for a vote? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second I'll motion to approve Z160, is this the right one? 49?
049, yes.
049.
Okay, and that is, do you want to read a little bit more of what is? the
Am I
staff-
supposed to read some of this?
It got read in when we started the
Okay.
agenda item, so.
Modifying the product narrative associated with the Mulberry pad.
Well, what I meant by that, and what are we approving? That approval with conditions is recommended by staff, is that?
Yes, we're rezoning from,
And the preliminary plat.
And
the companion case.
in your own words?
maybe I shouldn't be the one reading this. We're going to be approving the rezoning from RSL 2.5 PAD to RM2 PAD, to RSL 4.5 PAD on the 43.4 acres and the 10,000 through 10,300 blocks of East Guadalupe Road and the 2,600 through 2,700 blocks of South Crisman Road. And the companion case to the preliminary plat Mulberry Parcel 5, which is associated with item 5A. Have I said enough things yet?
And to clarify, is that?
4B. Not 5A, 4B. Is that right? Am I good?
Yes, I think you said in there someplace, approval with conditions is recommended by staff.
Approval with conditions as recommended by staff.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. A second on that motion? Thank you, Jennifer. Please vote. Or first of all, any other discussion? I guess we're late for that. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your input, Mr. Dugas. Well, we'll look forward to those 20-foot wide garages going forward. Okay, let's see. I believe we're moving on to item 5A. Am I correct? Okay, thank you. Have I, what do we got? Two more? Wait a second, did I?
No.
Okay, so 6, bear with me just a moment here. Let me get to what I have here. That would be, which cards, we've already done. Did we already do these? 0, which one?
1650, which is 5A.
Which one is this one right here? That's 6A. This is 6A. I'm just trying to get them, so that's
Yeah,
6 way on the back, so it looks like, okay, so is that the one, so we are on 5A50, thank you for your assistance. Okay, so next item, case Z16-050, District 5, 3100 to 3200 block of North Wrecker Road, 5700 to 5900 block along Bow Parkway, etc. This is a request to allow the development of a commercial retail center. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. With that, I will turn some time over to Mr. Spurgeon to talk on behalf of the staff.
Chair, board members, as presented at study session yesterday, this is a site plan approval for 11 acres out of the Longbow Development Master Plan. The land was zoned C2 in 2008 and also had a development master plan, now PAD, established in 2006. The first phase of development is proposing approximately 65,000 square foot of commercial retail space with indication of a 30,000 square foot anchor store shown in the drawings to be a Sprouts Market. This case was, that from a design point of view, considered by the Design Review Board at their meeting last week, and they supported the design. And I know that the applicant has an extensive presentation ready to go, so I will turn the time over to them.
Okay, thank you.
Staff does recommend approval.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for staff before we, I guess not?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Stephen Earle. My address is 3101 North Central Avenue in Phoenix. I'm here today in behalf of Kitchell. I have representatives from Kitchell here with me, Brad Anderson and Rob Schramm, as well as the project architect, Rick Butler from Butler and Associates. We appreciate the rather thorough report that staff has provided to you, and we're in agreement with the stipulations that they are proposing. If I can, I guess I just use this, right? Does that get me to the next? Somebody has to turn it on up there.
There you go.
There we go. As Andrew just mentioned, this property was originally approved for a development master plan for a very intense, it had a BIZ overlay, a very intense business park that also had a golf course. That dates back to 2002, and this is the plan that was approved back then as a part of that DMP. Golf course was built, the golf clubhouse was built, and of course the reason why that golf clubhouse is there and the golf course is because this is the end of the runway for Falcon Field. So there was an intent with the BIZ overlay that you could get up to 90 feet, and that's caused some concern amongst the neighbors because that's in the material, but not what we're doing. Fortunately, after the DMP was approved in 2002, there were a series of additional approvals that came along, one which is the design guidelines that we are required to comply with and do in this project, and that's 2005. Then there was a comprehensive sign plan in 2006 that was approved, and we are in compliance with that comprehensive sign plan that was approved. And then in 2008, the thought was we're going to change away from M1, which dated all the way back to 1987, to C2, and that created the commercial center that you see on the north side of Longbow. This is really the original 2002, but even in this plan, as you approach Recker Road, it shows considerable amount of intensity with retail development, office, and hotel. This now is the actual site we're seeking to develop. It's, as Andrew said, 11 gross acres, 9 net acres. So it's a first phase of a larger center that you can see is about 50 acres if you take all of the land that's zone C2 on the north side of Longbow Boulevard, from the freeway down to Longbow. So this is a rather modest phase one of a much larger development that will come in increments. Kitchell is seeking to also pursue those other elements, but for now we're doing phase one because Sprouts is very excited about developing this center and being the anchor tenant. In fact, they've told us they want to open their store next year, which, as we all know, is extremely aggressive. These are just a few photographs of the subject property that show that the streets are in, Longbow is completed. It was designed for a very intense development and was approved, and that design has been built out. It has offsetting sidewalks and tree-lined streets. Recker Road has also been completed. This owner, who is here tonight with us, participated in the cost of constructing Recker Road. This is the site plan that's in your packet. I think there are several important features to this plan that I think are worth noting in terms of the site plan. In original drawings, there were 2 access points on the Recker Road. We decided that it was better to have 1 access point because everything to the north is really controlled very much by ADOT. In fact, as I think Andrew indicated, the median's controlled by ADOT and a lot of design features are controlled. So in working with them, we put that access point a little, essentially where the second access point had been in earlier plans. And then there's an access point, kind of the main grand access point off of Longbow. And they come to an intersection that will become part of ultimately phase 2, which is a people place that I'll show you, a gathering place. There's extensive pedestrian connections, both out to the street, through the center. You might notice a great deal of trees that are being planted here. That's by intention. These are tree-lined walkways that I'll show you in a few seconds. We also think it's relevant that the shop space next to Sprouts actually faces the street. So you don't have the side of a major tenant, which tends to be a blank wall. That was specifically intended by Sprouts that they would present a great image toward Recker Road, as well as having their front door to the south. Another important feature we worked out with staff was bringing the buildings like shops A and B out to the street rather than having parking lots be out to the street. We had extensive setbacks and then brought those buildings and created a people place there. This next slide shows the amount of landscaping that is actually being proposed. And all along Recker Road, for example, there are 28 new trees that will be planted and over 200 plants in an area that is much larger than normal. Instead of a 20-foot setback, which is in city code, this has a 30-foot setback, plus it has excess right-of-way that's on Recker Road of another 30 to 40 feet. So from back of curb to the first building can be, in most cases, 60 feet. And that, as we've indicated, will be extensively landscaped, which will present a great image for the project. This shows some of that distance of the landscaping, of the 30-foot landscaped area within the project, and then the additional 30 to 40 feet of landscaping that will be on the excess right-of-way before you reach the curb. The difference between the 30 and 40 is just the right turn lane that we're putting into the main driveway. A question was raised to us during our neighborhood outreach and by the individual who's submitted a letter about light spillage. Those neighbors who live along the east side of Recker Road actually have their homes back up to Recker Road. And so there was a question about how much light spillage you're going to have. Well, first of all, one of the nice things about this site is that it doesn't have to build the pad heights up, 10 feet or 6 feet. Our pad heights will actually be at or below the grade of the adjacent sidewalk. So that was another concern, that these buildings are going to get jacked up in the air, and that won't happen. But in addition to that, in terms of lighting, you can see here that the parking lot lights are, number one, shielded, pointed down. And the lights that are on the buildings, you can see there are 2 different kinds of lights that would be on the back side of these buildings, but they're also shielded and pointing downward. And then to the extent we have unique street lights or lights along the street, that's also shielded. That's important because we're required by code to not have light spillage beyond our property line. And the reason for the photometric plan is to show that the eastern edge of light is at our property line. So we don't put any light past that. We were asked about how signage might affect that light in a meeting yesterday with Mr. Ostrin, and our point back to him was, well, yes, there will be signs, but those signs will be in compliance with the approved comprehensive sign plan. There are also freestanding signs, monument signs, but again, we're going to build those in compliance. We are asking for some architectural treatments to have it match our architecture of our buildings, but the standards will be adhered to. But the reason for showing this is just to indicate that there will not be light spillage off the property. These are the designs that were approved, essentially approved by the Design Review Board. I guess they, instead of approving it, they just indicated too much that they really like this design. The features of this that are of importance is Sprouts is doing something unique here. It's a prototype store for them, even though they have many stores in the valley now. This was a new one. It's a little bit larger at 30,000 square feet. Usually they've been about 22. They have an extensive overhang or canopy, a roof canopy over their front door. It's all shown in blue. It's about 20 feet deep, so as you're coming toward this from the parking lot, you're coming under a canopy as you come over the sidewalk. The yellow/orange, that's another canopy that is just outside the area where you can get a sandwich from the deli and sit outside. That'll all be landscaped. The green, of course, shows the foundation landscaping as well as landscaping outboard of that sidewalk area so that people are, again, walking under shade. And this generally shows that in terms of building height, we were asked about building height here. Even though there is a BIZ overlay across the overall master plan, we're simply one-story retail. The city code allows 30 feet with architectural embellishments, and the very top element above Sprouts is just an embellishment. And the heights go down from 28 feet down to 24 feet on the shop space. These are the architectural renderings of the shop space that we showed the Design Review Board last week. Again, very consistent with the Sprouts theme. They, in fact, were very involved in the architecture. This is yet another one showing the shops A and B and their consistency with the overall theme and how they approach the interior of the site. This is one of the people places where the two entries come together, one from Longbow coming from the south and one from Rucker coming from the east, terminate at this location. This is illustrative of one that's already built. We would be trying to do something like this where you could sit, rest in a landscaped area and potentially have exhibits or exhibitions. This is the other people place that's right at the corner. You'll notice that there are sidewalks coming from Rucker and coming from Longbow into this patio area. What's over that are sails, kind of a fabric sail, which is also planned in other parts of it, and it's reminiscent of the same features that are at the golf clubhouse. And this is just a sketch of that people place adjacent to Shops A and B. This is the diagram of the pedestrian pathways that I mentioned earlier and the relationship between that and the motorists, which is always a concern in new centers. How do you deal with people coming in cars and interfacing with pedestrians? Because we believe that over time there will be more and more pedestrians coming to this site. And so all the blues are pedestrian ways, most of which are shaded, tree-lined elements. And then the parts that you're seeing there in kind of an orange, those are pavers, which slow the cars down. So as they enter the site, they're being slowed down because now they're in a different environment than the public streets. And the intersection of the two in the middle is where we really want them to slow down. And so we put stop signs there so that there will not be fast traffic through the center. There is one request that we're making to the zoning administrator. It's mentioned in the staff report. It has to do with a request to use diamonds, significant diamonds, in order to put in more trees, so we'd have a tree every 4 spaces instead of the ordinance requirement of 8, but the sacrifice would be that we'd have fewer parking lot planter islands. We would make the planter islands that we do have larger. So overall, there's about an increase of some over 300 square feet of actual landscaping by doing this alternative landscape plan that's only in front of Sprouts. Otherwise, we're just doing what the code requires. This shows that a unique feature. Sometimes when I've been in parking lots, they have a little diamond-shaped planter that has a tree in it. Well, that's the middle part of this, which is only 6 feet by 6 feet. But what's around it are pavers that get you to 12 feet by 12 feet. So if you add the 6 and the 12, it's a significant area throughout this area of the parking lot, so that you have a beautiful tree-lined area with pavers. And we had to find a paver that would allow permeability, so that the water not only goes through it, but it is also stabilized below it, so it doesn't drench the tree. And so there's a unique product that we had to find to do that. And that's mentioned in the staff report. These are just some of the features of our architecture in terms of lighting and gates and screen windows and seating areas. They just wanted you to be aware of that are part of the design. So that's our presentation. We'd be glad to respond to any questions, and obviously if there are questions after other speakers are here, I'd be glad to respond to those individually.
Well, thank you, Mr. Earl. Any questions for him, for the applicants at this point? All right. I have one blue card on this case. This is from Randy Roston. If you'll come forward, you wish to speak, and you have not indicated on your card whether you support or oppose, so if you'd clarify that at the stand.
Excuse me. I'm Randy Rostron, 3140 North Olympic, here in Mesa, 85215. Mr. Chairman and board members, I really would like to first say I appreciate the time that Mr. Earl and Mr. Anderson gave me yesterday, and kind of giving me some of the history of what's transpired both here and where they're at with the project now. I also I learned through the process that they're within the developer guidelines and what's been established. I'm not in argument with that. I think the project looks great. I'd like to see that done. I've lived directly behind this property for 13 years. I'm the home that's directly east of the entrance off of Wrecker, or the exit right in, right out. There's where my concerns start to occur. Some of the earlier drawings Mr. Earl had up reference some auxiliary type entrances or exits off onto Wrecker. This is the first one I've seen where there's been a major entrance as stipulated in an August platform that was given in that was submitted to design or to the city for design review and a narrative. 2 major accesses in and out of this property, one off Wrecker, one off Longbow. This is the first time that that's occurred. And the fact that there's going to be that much traffic immediately off of the 202, from the north of the 202, and then coming in and out of that, be either right in or right out. If you're coming from the north, you want to go back to the north more than likely, if you came to that. How are you going to get there if you're constantly coming in on what is deemed to be a major entrance or exit? Well, you're close to that light. You're going to try to get to that light, and you're going to cross 2 major intersections, or cross the street, crossing 2 lanes of traffic to get into a turning lane that only turns into our development. In turn, what we've witnessed many times without a development being there, as soon as they come in, they turn around and do a U-turn real quick right there at that intersection of Olympic and Preston, and come right back out to the light and go north or south. Currently, you can't get down Longbow onto Preston because of the median that's in the middle there at the street light. So my concern is the intrusion of light from the headlights from that exit, because it shines directly in. And as I learned yesterday, that drive entrance is on a little bit of a ramp up, and then it flattens out. But as you come up, you're shining up at an angle which would proceed to light up my backyard or the portion of my home and the adjacent home. The other concern with that, also in that same intersection or location, is pad P2. I don't want, or I would not, and hopefully you would see it as well, I don't want to drive through immediately at that intersection between the building and Wrecker. One, you get the light shining the people at the intercom looking out or shining their headlights out, and then turning and I'm listening to both the order being placed and the people asking and confirming the order. Then they come up to the drive-through window. Yes, it's not in an intercom, but now you're conversing with that individual through that window about their said order. Yes, some of the noise or some of the conversation is going to get muted from the setback, but it's still there. And guess what? It's still there till 1, maybe 2 in the morning, depending on their drive-through hours. The materials of the project, great. The layout of the project's great. I just don't like the intersection and the location of the intersection in relation to our immediate 5, 6, 7 homes right there that are going to get affected by that. That is all I'm questioning here. And I'd ask both the staff and here, the board, to take and consider asking some questions and maybe creating some stipulations as it's related. Sorry I ran over, or maybe I forgot to put
Well,
it.
Mr.
I'm
Ross,
sorry.
actually, I have a question for you. So what would you propose as an alternative?
Not make that in major, like there's one there showed.
Meaning have no access or just move it down?
Well, there was one showing north of that and one south of that at one point on an old plan that was prior to the current development showing, but it wasn't identified as a major access. This is major volume. And if you take a look at the size of it and what they're occurring there, and now I also learned yesterday, this is an ADOT. There's ADOT stipulations, so they're taking that entrance from 50 foot down to 40 foot per ADOT. If Brad, if I'm quoting, or Mr. Anderson, if I'm quoting that right, I'm pretty sure you said it's getting reduced to 40 foot? That's correct. Okay, so there's just, it's gonna get real tight there. I think the fact that there's a decel lane for it, but just, it's the only entrance off of a wrecker, and this is the first time that I've been able to surmise that's only been shown as one, and it's a major entrance, and two, instead of 2 smaller, lesser entrances, or less defined entrances, let's say.
So at the neighborhood meeting, there were 2 entrances and then? now-
Well, at previous, and what I'll back up. I was not available to go to that meeting in August. So last week was my first opportunity, not knowing this process and how this all, that's what I started getting in and presented both the letter, subsequent letter, and then here this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Mr. Ross?
I do, just a
Yes, Michelle.
question. Mr. Rostron, how tall is your rear wall?
6 foot.
6 feet.
Well, actually, portion of it's 6, and the other is maybe 5'4". It's about right here.
Because of elevation?
Yeah, it changes due to the subsequent grade, I guess, at the time when they built the wall. So about a third of my wall is 5'4" or so.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Earl, if you wouldn't mind addressing the concerns of Mr. Rostron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We did have a neighborhood meeting in August, as was indicated. It was held at the Longbow Country Club, and so it was very convenient to the neighbors to come. We sent out all required notices, and we had about 15 neighbors from that neighborhood to the east that came. I think they were uniformly supportive of the plan. They were candidly quite anxious to see Sprouts be developed and come into the neighborhood. The issues that you're hearing from Mr. Rostrom were not mentioned during that meeting. We showed the same plan that you're seeing here today. The access off of Wrecker, I understand that Mr. Rostrom is indicating to you that that's going to be a major entrance. Well, it is the entrance off of Wrecker, but it's only 1 lane in each direction. It's not 2 lanes in each direction or something. It is 40 feet wide, but that's because we have a wide median in the middle of it that allows you to have a kind of a nice experience as you come in. We tried to look at the amount of slope to the driveway because we've indicated that the height of the buildings here is going to be roughly the same as the height of the street. So we don't see the lice going into the yards on the other side. But remember, this is a right in, right out only. So we don't have people turning left out of this. There's a significant median built by ADOT. So to us, the amount of traffic in and out of that driveway will be coming in, which shouldn't be a problem, and going out, which should have the headlights turning to the south, not going straight out and going to the north. So the bend of the lights we think will be beneficial. Two, we think the distance, and that's why we tried to give you the distances here of almost 200 feet, that would be beneficial, that distance. Plus, if you're talking about the car coming down and the lights, which are essentially about 2 feet off the ground or 3 feet off the ground, are going to be, if they shine up, they're going to be over the top of the wall. But we don't think that, given that distance, it will be a significant issue. There was mention that there will be a lot of U-turns made or turns made into the neighborhood. The intersection of Wrecker Road and Longbow is a signalized intersection. It was created when the project was initially approved as a DMP back in 2002, and that road was sized to handle this master plan of some 300 acres, and the signal was put in so that people would, if they're going to make a left-hand turn to go north, they would make it at that intersection. I can't, I suppose, stop someone making a gerrymandered turn. We could put in a sign that says no U-turns. We'd certainly be happy with that. We don't want anyone going south, coming across 2 lanes to make a U-turn around the end of the median. We understand that. We don't want any of the people from our development going into that neighborhood unless they live in the neighborhood. And they might actually come out there and make that turn because that's where they live, candidly. There's a lot of demographics. If you look at the map, you got Red Mountain Ranch to the north of the freeway, and then you have this neighborhood to the east of Wrecker Road. So that's the demographic for us. In terms of the pad, which was mentioned as P2, you'll see that it does have a drive-through. The details of that pad have not been finalized. That's the reason that pad is not actually in the application tonight. We're working with staff on the final design of that. We might be able to, shift the building a little bit, and whatever we do, we have to fully screen any car that's in that lane. And for what it's worth, just I learned something recently in representing McDonald's, that there's been a whole new generation of speaker boxes. I think we're all familiar with the comedians that spend a lot of time talking about how they can't hear anything out of a speaker box and that it's a blaring noise. And in fact, in past years, that has been a significant concern. However, the technology has fortunately improved. And so this speaker box, however it would be designed, would not be pointed toward the neighborhood. It would be pointed away. Number two, they're designed to have automatic voice control based on ambient conditions. So we have Wrecker Road as a major street. During the day, it carries a lot of traffic and is noisy. At night, that traffic may be reduced, and so the ambient noise goes down, which means the volume of the voice box automatically goes down to fit ambient conditions in new technology that's used in all of these restaurants today. So my experience is, and I candidly, because I knew I'd be here tonight, I actually drove through a McDonald's drive-through within the last couple of weeks, and I got to the voice box and I tried to make my order, and there was a response, and I had to say, "Excuse me, I can't hear you." So they had to speak up a little bit, simply because there is a desire not to have an impact on adjacent neighbors that sometimes are very close to those boxes. Here, we're going to be across an arterial road. But we'll work with staff on the final design of that so that it should not be an irritant. We certainly don't want that, but it's an important part of the project to be able to have those uses. So we're excited with this project. We think it meets the goals and objectives of the general plan as noted in the staff report. I think there's a great deal of excitement to have a market in this area. They've been longing for something. In fact, there's another Sprouts in the city of Mesa, and one of the comment cards that keeps going in is, when are you going to have one out in the northeast area? So that's the reason why they're coming here, is because of the demand. Be glad to respond to any other questions if I've missed something.
Okay, and before we do, just one mention, we did misplace one of our cards. We have one other public member who wishes to speak,
okay,
so if you
sure.
wouldn't mind. But did you have a question for Mr. Earl before we call?
We can have the other one first.
Okay, thank you. What's that? You want to wait? Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That was, what's that? Yes, Janine Sykes, if you would come forward, you have indicated that you were opposed to the project against some of the items. So if you would give us your name and
Yes, I am.
address.
Thanks, I reminded him, and you got my card. My name is Jeannie Sykes. I live at 3148 North Olympic, Mesa, Arizona 85215, and I've lived there 20 years, and I'm the next-door neighbor of Randy. And I agree with everything that he says. We're happy. We think they've designed a pretty thing here. We're happy to have sprouts and such as that. The one big concern that I have, we have an ADOT and the City of Mesa Police and probably the Maricopa County Sheriff could verify, since the 202 was built, originally we were not supposed to have an off-ramp for Wrecker, but due to circumstances, I don't know if you guys were on the board at that time, they did end up putting one there, and the traffic has gotten horrendous. The noise has gotten horrendous between that and the Scottsdale training school that came over to our airport and the planes that fly over, and the bumps that we now have in the neighborhood because of those people coming in and turning down. All these people come out, like my house, I feel like I'm in the middle of the freeway. It's so noisy. But my main concern is the safety because of that street, main street that they have that's going to turn in, I guess, to a restaurant or something there. I feel like because already just coming off the 202, that's what I was bringing up earlier about the police could verify an ADOT. They have numerous accidents there because you can have no right-hand turn there. And people coming down from Red Mountain area, which is about 3 tracks down, there's another couple of tracks before then, are having many fender benders. We've only had a couple of major ones there. And at the other end where the 2 people died coming out of the CVS, that and the light situation is very distressful to me, and I do have a heart problem. I've lived here 20 years, and I had hoped to stay here until I died in my old age, and I wish it was quiet like it was 20 years ago, and it's terrible, and I just want you guys, when you're approving these, I think everybody has good intention to think, how would you feel if you lived there and the world as you've known it the last 20 years has radically changed to where now you just feel like, as bad as I hate to think I'm moving back to California where I'm from, but I came there because my job came there years ago and grew to love it and decided to say, now I feel like selling my house. I don't care if I take a big loss, which I'm sure I will because it's gotten so noisy now, and moving somewhere out in the country where I don't have to put up with all this kind of stuff and worry about wrecks and such as that. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. Okay, Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to add a little bit of additional information, and I truly appreciate the comments that are made by Ms. Sachs. Wrecker Road has become a very busy street. It did become an off-ramp of the freeway, and perhaps many years ago it was not planned to be that. But it does carry significant volume of traffic, and it probably will carry more over time. And so life, if you have your home back up to an arterial road, you're dealing with noise that you probably didn't expect when you first moved there 20 years ago. And I apologize that that's happened. Our plan has this, the intensity of our plan is low, but over time we agree that when you build out all 50 acres of this center, it was designed and approved to be a much larger center. We're building phase 1 now. Phase 2 could come along in another year or two. That's just the part we're showing here as phase 2. We did, for what it's worth, go to the trouble of having this matter looked at from a traffic engineering standpoint. We did turn in a traffic report. Chuck Wright with Kimley Horn, a well-known traffic engineer in the Valley, has provided these exhibits that were provided to staff. And you can see that from a peak hour standpoint, phase 1, which you're showing, we're only talking about a total of 61 vehicles in an AM peak and 235 in the PM peak, which is a little bit longer time frame. But overall, the number of cars we're talking about adding to the total system in all directions, whether they go east or west on Longbow and north or south on Wrecker or on Higley, that's not a significant increase overall. And we're talking about both phases 1 and 2. And then this is the level of service analysis that has to be done and turned into the city. And you can see that the intersection of Longbow with Wrecker operates today in the C and B range during all relevant AM and PM peaks. And when we add our traffic to that, you can see that it still functions as an A or B intersection. The other A's and B's you see and C's are all our driveways. So again, service level D is the expected level of service or better. And so in all of the driveways and the intersections, we will function at appropriate service levels. I know this may not be exactly what the two neighbors here tonight wanted us hear in the sense that they already feel we have a lot of traffic on record, and certainly this shopping center will increase the amount of trips. But the good news is that it's going to have shopping close by. And they'll be able to come over here and eat here, get their groceries here. There may be offices here that they can benefit from. So we hope that all things being considered, it'll be a great asset to the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ross. Any inquiries from staff? I think, Tim, you had one, and Michelle, you had a question as well.
Yeah, I have, I guess, two now. If ADOT runs that median, can they, I know they've got some stuff planted there now, can they more thickly plant that? Can we recommend that as a city, or is that something that we just have to leave it up to them to do on their own?
The city can certainly have a discussion with ADOT, but we cannot make it a requirement associated with this request.
Okay, for the lighting. And then there's also, there's exits from shopping centers that have curves on them that can keep the lights from shining straight out. I don't know if you've looked at some options like this, but this is one that's not far from my place that really makes it so that if you're coming straight down the street right there, your lights are hitting that little planter that's in front there. You can plant that in such a way that you can get out there easily without shining your lights across the streets. Just another option.
Yeah, that can be looked at.
Thank you, Tim. Michelle?
You mentioned there might be some wiggle room you have with respect to the design of pad site 2. Could you give us a little bit more detail about what you had in mind, some things that might make the neighbor happy, and then maybe staff could also share some ideas that they have too?
Well, realizing that the city is not anxious to have a drive-through along the frontage of an arterial road, we sat down with staff to come up with trellis elements that might make that side look, and have cars go under a trellised element. We can have screen walls, and we can add more landscaping along that entire side as we come through for that site plan itself to make that look very attractive. And so it is the only drive-through we're showing in this whole plan. So we wanted to be very sensitive to it. And obviously it's part of our front door image on record. So we certainly don't want it to detract. But we are looking at potentially modifying the location of the building to make it more of a north-south rather than an east-west element. And so during that process, there'll still be a drive-through, but we can work very hard on the design of that facility to both with the trellis elements and the screen walls. In addition, we can work very closely on that speaker box so that it does not project that direction. Although when you have a lot of traffic on Record Road, I can tell you from traffic or from sound studies I've done for McDonald's in many Mesa locations, the sounds associated with the street are far above any sound associated with the speaker. It's the difference between things like 60 to 70 dBs to 30 to 45 dBs. So.
Yes.
Regarding that driveway on Record Road, we had talked about on some previous cases of having some sort of I know it just goes straight out. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no, what if you put some sort of like where the people coming out especially have to make a turn, like a pork chop type of a drive-through? We talked about that one time before, right? Is that a possibility to at least to mitigate some of the light problems?
That was, in fact, what Commissioner Boyle was showing me.
Yeah.
Was a design like that.
I couldn't hear it. Sorry about that.
And my response was, we can look at that.
Yeah.
I just have a question for staff. On the intersection at Rucker and Longbow, how they currently have those medians. I understand the intent, is to keep people out of going into further in the Longbow, but I don't know, did you guys discuss removing that? Just because now the residents of Longbow can't use this facility really without going all the way north across the freeway and coming all the way back down, it looks like. And then just, I can see people regardless of the median, as they mentioned, it getting busier, trying to maneuver something and there being more accidents just because people are trying to make it work, something that won't work.
Okay, Board Member Sarkeesian, that, to clarify, that's the driveway, not the street intersection, correct? The driveway
No,
coming out to the...
I'm looking at in their context photos.
Okay.
Photo B, and it has on there, looking into their neighborhood.
Okay.
Right turn only, left turn only, but you can't go straight through the intersection.
Right. That is it's discussed in the staff report a little bit. That's an unusual traffic calming feature that we're not sure we have anything else like that in Mesa. We have had conversations with the transportation department about that traffic calming feature. It appears that it was a request of the neighborhood to the east at the time it was installed. And so the feeling with talking to the transportation department is that since it was something the community requested, there needs to be some additional outreach with that community regarding if it was to be removed. So it wouldn't look like the city or the developer was going in and making a decision since there was such a thoughtful process to create it in the first place. But certainly I think the applicant's team, city staff have recognized that that's a less than desirable situation for circulation.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any discussion before I call for a vote, or a motion, excuse me? You have a question? Oh, you do, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you sat down, I had a question. Would you be okay if we had a condition added that just clarify that you would work with staff on trying to minimize noise and light issues with regard to the driveway and the pad or the drive-through?
Oh, no, he's talking about the pad.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, we can work with staff on making sure that the noise controls are handled properly and the screening of any cars that would be in a drive-through.
And to clarify, pads P2 and P3 both require future site plan and design review.
So that would be in the future plan?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we have to come back to design review for those. We're not getting approval for them tonight.
So would that not be an appropriate thing to do, is add a condition now to this because of that other mechanism that's in place? I don't want to cause any problems with it, but I thought it might be something good to add now, that you would be looking out for it in advance. And then the neighbors would know that there'd be further work that could be done to mitigate those issues.
Yes, we did look at this approval as setting the framework for when those pads come in, so the board could propose that condition at this time.
Did you say can do it now or do it later? I'm not sure I understand that.
They have the discretion to do so if
Okay.
they so
Yeah.
choose. if
So
that's the
whether you make it a
consensus.
stipulation or not, we know staff's heard it, we've heard it, and we certainly will do that before we come back for the design review of that application.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Earl? All right.
Thank you.
I guess it looks like we're getting tired. Tim, I think we need a joke. You want to kind of generate some life here?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
You ready for?
Unless Tim is
Did
really,
you-
or
unless you-
unless Dean is really getting ready to do something.
You go ahead, Michelle. I'm done.
Are you ready? Go right ahead.
I'll take a stab at this here. I'd like to make a recommendation for approval of Z16050 for the 3100 to 3200 block of North Record Road for site plan review to allow for the development of a commercial retail center, along with the staff recommended conditions, with an added condition that the applicant will work with staff to mitigate light and noise issues associated with the pad along Ricker Road and the driveway proposed along Ricker Road.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay. Vote passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. That now brings us to our The last item on our agenda, which is case Z16-046, in District 3, the 1800 block of West Main Street.
Chair,
Yes.
can I, at this time, recuse myself? I have a conflict of interest. A family member owns a property across the street from this, so I will be leaving the dais as recommended per city attorney.
Okay, thank you, Tim. All right, to continue on then, let's see, this case basically deals with the approval. It's a request for approval rezoning from ID-2, GC-biz, LC-biz, and LC to T4N, T4NF, T5N, T5MSF, and T5MS, and the adoption of a smart growth community plan, including preliminary development plan. The current staff recommendation is approval with conditions. So with that, turn some time over to staff. So Mr. Sprugen, if you'd like to make.
Chair, board members, this is for approval of City of Mesa's first smart growth community plan using the form-based code. So it's been interesting to work through that process and see how it'll work and give the board the opportunity to review this first one as we try to use that code elsewhere in Mesa. The site is 20 acres. The proposal indicates a range of between 490 and 605 dwelling units in a series of different buildings, generally 3 to 5 stories tall. There would also be a parking facility open to the general public as a replacement facility for the Valley Metro Park and Ride that is at this location. A future development agreement is proposed subsequent to this approval that would create conditions for a future park and ride facility, the bus transfer facility, Valley Metro infrastructure on the site, such as the TPSS substation, the Main Street right-of-way, as well as provisions to provide parking and access as needed for the Webster Recreation Center and Webster Elementary School, which are just to the north of the property. The applicant did include a school impact study with the report that actually shows that the school district anticipates enrollment at Webster to decline significantly through year 2021. And so the added student enrollment from this project increases the enrollment numbers, but still the overall net is a decrease over present day enrollment. This is the preliminary development plan. Subsequent to this approval, there will be the development agreement as discussed. There would also be a final development plan, which could be for part of the property or all of the property, depending on how the developer chooses to proceed. Staff has proposed to include design guidelines with that stage of development. In terms of addressing the site, in terms of circulation, parking, utilities, solid waste, those type of services, those are some of the things that we will work through during the subdivision technical review for the property. There is also a zoning clearance stage for the property that's substitutes for the typical site plan process. And then it would be through the normal building plan review, permitting and inspection procedures. Staff does recommend approval, and I know the applicant has an extensive presentation.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn time over to the applicant. If you'd give us your name and address.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lindsay Shuby with the law firm of Gamage and Burnham, 2 North Central. With me tonight is Neil Calfee with Mira Vista Holdings, who's our client and the developer of the project, and then also Eric Zorbrist. Did I say it right? Sorry, Eric. With Ayers St. Gross. And one thing that's interesting in terms of Neil and his team that he put together for this project, I did a big transect zoning case up in Flagstaff, and you had the same consultant do your code as did the code up in Flagstaff. And transect zoning, it's new and it's exciting and it's fun, but there are challenges in implementing it. And so part of what Andrew has said that's a really important piece is the commitment to work together and figure this out and to make sure that your first project is a great project. And then Eric has done the first form-based code project in Phoenix. And I would argue they are the form-based code experts in the Valley and down here. So, you know, we're committed to this site, we're committed to this project, and we've got a lot of form-based code knowledge. And then with Andrew's background, I think we can figure this out. But just for a moment, just to step back, and I don't want to take a lot of time because we're all exhausted. We were the only ones pulled off consent yesterday morning. But, and Commissioner Boyle isn't up here, so I shouldn't be speaking to him, but since I've been doing zoning, we've had highs and we've had lows, and to think tonight that you guys have 4 sale subdivision single home projects, 4 rent, bungalow type projects, commercial centers. Now we're coming forward with 4 rent apartments, 4 sale townhomes, assisted living, a parking garage. I mean, my first pre-app was here in Mesa with John Wesley a long time ago. And to think that crash in 2008, we had times where there wasn't a lot going on anywhere. And so it's really exciting just kind of looking at your agenda tonight and what's happening in Mesa. And I think this project really speaks to that, a part of town that has not seen development in a while, and to now come forward with something really exciting and new for the entire city, and to bring some excitement back down to Dobson and Maine, or Sycamore, Maine. So Neil is going to walk you through the project. We're going to take you through all the different parcels. We're going to try to keep it short because maybe some of us want to see the debate tonight. I don't know, or don't, so we can go longer.
Thank you, Lindsay. Again, my name's Neil Calfee. I'm with Mira Vista Holdings. We're at 502 South College, Tempe, 85281. Board members, what I'd like to do is walk you through, again, quickly go through the project itself. We sort of covered generally what we're talking about in terms of location. I'll add a little color to that. You heard from Andrew that we're looking at a site at Sycamore and Maine, basically Sycamore to Dobson. This is the Sycamore Station light rail stop, which with the current extension of light rail to the east to Mesa Drive, and now with the current construction of light rail to Gilbert Road, this is not the end of the line anymore. And so when the original 20-mile segment was designed, the end of the line had a lot of parking. And when it was done, there was an unknown amount of how much park and ride was going to be needed, and so they sized this site as end of the line for about 850 spaces. That never really came to be in terms of utilization, except for some special events, which made that happen about on a day-to-day basis. It was not used to that extent. With the extension of light rail, this has really created the opportunity for this overall project. And so what we're bringing forward is a transit-oriented development on the light rail station that is taking advantage of what was essentially a land bank when the light rail was originally conceived, and allows it to then be redeveloped into something that's transit-oriented into this area. So again, the site is at essentially Dobson and Maine. The existing amenities on the site are largely park and ride, and then the Safeway Center, which is at the hard corner, which is not part of this project, but has an opportunity potentially to graft onto this and also make some improvements to themselves. But again, largely the improvements are a parking lot to the north of the Safeway Center. To the east is the park and ride, and then a vacant property, which you had through here a few years ago for a low-income housing tax credit project, which never came to be. Providing just a general outline of what's around the site. We have to the north Webster Elementary, which we could talk about later. We also have to the east single-family residential. To the south, commercial development, another shopping center, which may be where H Mart is going into in the near future, and Mekong Plaza on the opposite corner from that. And then west of the site is some strip retail with single family behind it. As we mentioned, you've gone through the zoning transects, which show the zoning categories we're looking at. Just as a quick organizing element, you'll see a central spline up directly east of the Safeway Center. That's one of the main organizing elements for this proposed project, which leads directly into what would be the parking garage for the light rail project. What we want to do is organize off of that so that we are still providing strong access to the light rail station from the park and ride, and that we can organize the project, create mixed-use elements off of that central spline around it. You get a general sense of the building forms as we've proposed. What we wanted to do was give the staff and the neighbors and others involved an ability to understand what we're talking about generally in terms of massing heights, building layouts, but all of this will then come back through a subsequent process. We'll then take these and refine them, make whatever changes are needed to bring them through individually as we go. This is, again, a massing study which shows generally the elements in context and showing what we see on the site itself. You'll see the light blue at the foreground. That is a multifamily project, market rate up to 300 units, 5 stories in height, stepping down to 4 stories as it goes to the back of the site to the north. North of that, in the dark blue, is a market rate for sale townhome product. We're thinking, 10 to 15 units to the acre, but attached product, but again, single family market rate housing. To the west of that is the parking garage between the blue and the orange. That's the park and ride, which right now is projected to be sized at 250 spaces, with the potential for a mixed use element on the front of that. And then the orange in the back is a senior housing, basically an active adult rental community there. Lindsay had mentioned it's assisted living. That's not in the plans right now. There may be some skilled nursing component to it, but it really is an independent living senior rental product. What I'll walk through is each of the basic parcels and walk through the elements, just generally speaking, as we march through the site. So I'll start at the front with the multifamily adjacent to Sycamore Station. Again, this is a up to 300 unit market rate project. There have been some concerns with the neighbors that we may come in with affordable housing, and that is not within our plans. It's not anything that we're looking to do. We're not looking to do low-income housing tax credits. This is a market rate project, urban scale, urban design, that it's on the street, addressing the transit components, and is basically embracing the street. There's a potential for structured parking within the project as well, and again, to be able to allow for the density, again, up to 300 units and 5 stories in height. But something that also then includes a ground floor retail element, or basically be built out for that along the ground floor, so we can allow for that. And we hope that at least on the Main Street section of the project, that we can have commercial development in there. Moving to the north, the townhome product. This is a piece that we're very excited about. We think that it brings a nice mix into the project in terms of its size, that, as it buffers back between the multifamily, the school, and the single family to the east, having something that's 2- and 3-story townhome for sale at this site is a nice complement. We think it'll do very well. We're seeing other projects across the valley where you've seen infill townhome product do very well, and we think at this location with the adjacent amenities and the light rail that this will be a very successful component of the project. But again, as a buffer, with the intent of embracing and facing out to Sycamore with some of the units, so that they are engaging with the neighborhood and they're not turning their back to it, and this then becomes an extension of that neighborhood and as a buffer to the project, again, between the school and the neighbors to the east. Moving into the parking garage, this, as we mentioned, it will be probably a 1 or 2 level parking structure that will be for the express purpose of the park and ride for Sycamore Station. This then allows this to be consolidated, covered parking, and in the future basically operate as that. There is no intent or anything that we're doing that would park any of the components of the project in this structure, nor would the Safeway Center be using it. As really just as a public garage that'll be owned and managed by Valley Metro and or City of Mason. That's part of what we're going to be working on in our development agreement. And you'll see a little bit of that red on the front of that. We'd like to be able to program some form of commercial element, a coffee shop or something like that could serve those park and ride users. Moving west, and I apologize for the yellow, it should extend north into that T4NF. This is the senior housing component. We're looking at about 150 units of 55 plus active adult senior housing. Not unlike a typical multifamily project, but you tend to have larger units, you tend to have more amenities, maybe more staff that are on site, just a higher level of service that's expected. And again, we've mentioned the opportunity for maybe doing some skilled nursing. It's not a continuum of care, it's not an assisted living facility, but there's some opportunities in the market where if someone had an operation or something is going on where they need some level of skilled nursing, they can basically have that opportunity to be there at home and have that care versus being in a care facility or in a hospital. And studies have shown it speeds recovery. It's just a nice element. So, again, we're not looking to do something, a assisted living facility, but there could be some level of care. And there may be some synergy with the nursing school to the north and west of the site there. But again, we're excited about that opportunity, and we've in the market, and we see a lot of interest for this location because it does have the adjacent amenities of the Safeway, H Mart, Mekong, light rail. There's so many things going on. Wrigleyville to the north, so we feel very well received. So again, as we go through the project, that's what we're proposing to do. We're incredibly excited about the opportunity to be able to get into a site like this, which has so much potential. And with the light rail and with the ability to unlock this park and ride element and be able to turn it into something that really is transit supportive and we believe is compatible with the neighborhoods. We're very excited to move it forward and welcome any questions. Understand that we do have cards from the neighbors. We just like to reserve some time after that to be able to address any questions and provide any further discussion.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions before we get public input? We have a number of cards, and as a favor of those speaking, I would please ask that you would keep your thoughts to about 3 minutes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for your information. Actually, the first one here, I'll read in. The first one is from a Cynthia Melolo. She's opposed to the project. She does not wish to speak. She does add the comment, I'm concerned about too many low-rent housing in our area. Let's see, the next one. Oops, there's a whole lot more on the back. Sure you don't want to speak? Are you here? All right, let me read this. We live in this area all my life and have seen many changes. Low-rent housing on many streets, Phyllis Street, the bookstore apartments, the Warrant House apartments, and many others. We have seen crime rise in this area and graffiti. There is elementary school right next to that proposed area. Many apartments start out with market rates, but as the apartments age, they turn into low-rent housing. Senior housing would be acceptable because seniors take care of their areas. Those with lower rent apartments have less investment in their community than those who own homes. This area seems too much like a dumping ground for low rent apartments. Okay. Next card, Gabriel Saya. If you would come forward, please. Let's see, you wish to speak. You do not indicate whether you're in support or opposed to, so if you'll comment that, you do say that you are concerned about the impact of development on neighborhood property.
Great. Thank you, board members. My name is Gabriel Saya, address 2120 East 6th Street, Tempe, 852281. Our family owns the retail center at the southeast corner of Sycamore and Main Street. We've owned the center for 17 years, so we have a pretty good understanding of that neighborhood and how it's evolved over the last 10, 15 years. I'm in favor of the project in general as a concept. I like the product types they're putting there. I like the design, the footprint, the massing. I think if light rail is to be successful, it needs a good deal of density right there at the station, and they do accomplish that in their current design. I am, though, concerned about some of the positioning of the components, and I forwarded a letter to Andrew illustrating or detailing our concerns. One of them is being the position of the parking structure. Now, if we can turn back to that diagram.
Want to use that one, or do you want to use the plan?
Plan, please.
There you go.
Okay. When you measure the distance from some of the car stalls to the actual light rail station, it could be as much as almost a quarter-mile distance. When it's 100 degrees plus, people are not going to want to walk that far. What do they tend to do? Human nature, be a little bit lazy. Sometimes they park on the neighboring commercial properties, and we've struggled with that over the years. If now we're pushing that public parking so much further away from where it used to be, and I'm concerned that people will tend in a rush to park on the neighboring commercial properties. One of the other concerns we had is, I believe in the existing site layout, there is the ability to drop off and pick up family, friends, or when you're bringing somebody to the station to have a quick drop-off location. We don't have that in the current site. So what are people going to tend to do? They're going to go to the neighboring commercial properties, swing by through the retail centers and drop off people. There's going to create quite a bit of traffic congestion in our property because now there's no longer a drop-off location to the north. A couple of the other concerns that we had is during the and this wasn't addressed at the public hearing or the public meeting at Webster, but during construction, where's all that parking going to go? There's going to be an interim period of time that we want to make sure that somehow that public parking is accommodated for, rather than having just people scatter through the neighborhood. And also the lack of, on the current diagram, of adequate bicycle parking. I think the current site has quite a bit of public bicycle parking racks, and I don't see that in the current plan. Maybe that's going to be engineered later on, but all part of the transit-oriented development here. I think it would be great to have a lot of public parking for bicycle racks. Those are the main concerns that I'd like to see addressed in the final layout. And overall, very supportive of the project in terms of its general concept. I would just like to see better position of the components.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Next, I have Jack Isaacson. He is opposed to the project. If you'd like to come forward.
Yes, thank you.
Give us your name and address, please.
Name's Jack Isaacson, 2146 West 2nd Street, Mesa. I had written Mr. Spurgeon about my comments earlier. One is that the average price now for a 2-bedroom, 3-bath, single-family home in a neighborhood is around $175,000. The crime rate has skyrocketed where I am. As of this afternoon, I have the latest new sex offender in my neighborhood, and this is going on about every 3 weeks. Basically, it's not the development itself. My family's lived in the neighborhood for over 40 years, and it's gone downhill, not the city of Mesa, but everything west of Dobson's been totally ignored by the city. The May and Ellis Street's a disaster, the land in the park, and nothing's been done about it by the city, even calling the police, the sirens, all in the middle of the night. It needs to be fixed up. The area needs a police substation. It's a secondary issue to this thing. The students have to walk to school from my area, and now it's not easy access. It's like we did when they gated our alleyways, and then gave 40,000 of the same keys to everybody. Really smart, didn't do anything. This is not being thought out well in terms of the traffic that's in the area. They can't even support what's there now. Sometimes I can't even turn left out of my house on 2nd Street. I have to go down, make a right turn, go into the Safeway Plaza where the school is, and then come out the other driveway to get north. The parking is just a secondary but a significant part of the same problem. Having the senior housing or a limited number of units, I can understand some of that. But I just think there's a lot more work to do to look at what's going on for the value of the whole neighborhood and the taxpayer, because for me, I know you're saying the city of Mesa and the county does the tax bill, but it's been 5% every year. I'm on Social Security, and I'm almost being taxed out of the neighborhood. So my house, when I came back in, was originally $40,000 and went up to 90, and now it's 170, and it's not worth that. And what happens is now is what's going to happen is everybody from North Scottsdale or from New Mexico is going to be buying the units and then subletting it or doing something different. It's not going to be able to stay that way, and there's not enough adequate space for the transportation and traffic that's going around the area already. So it's an incomplete, it's good for its little bubble, but it's not paying attention to everything going around on the outside. And what's going to happen when we double the ridership on the light rail like it's supposed to happen. So, which doesn't even run at night now. And when it starts running later at night, what's going to happen next? That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. I appreciate your comments. Next on our list, we have Tyler Montague. And you wished, let's see, you are in support of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tyler Montague. I live at 534 North Orange Street in Mesa 85201. I consider myself a West Mesa advocate. I've lived there for my entire life. In fact, most of it on the same street, on Orange Street. I've lived in 3 houses on Orange Street. I'm in favor of the project. I'd like to give some thoughts to provide context for the reason I'm in favor of it and what my concerns are and what I think we should do, which is to formalize in the development agreement some of the conditions that and address some of the concerns that have already been mentioned. Traffic flow, et cetera, I share those. The city envisions diverse neighborhoods where you have a mix of higher-end homes and affordable homes. And I think this is wise. I think that supports sustainability, where over the long term people want to live there and move back, and that you have leadership and you have people who are getting started or people who are ending, and that it supports an ecosystem commercially where you have banks, hospitals, grocery stores, and retail. West Mesa has lost a lot of that. Banks have fled, and retail in many areas is suffering. So I think it's important that we focus on that objective in an area that's the size of maybe an elementary school boundary. A lot of people think, and you hear it reflected, you more than anyone, that all the high end should be in East Mesa and North Mesa, and the low end and affordable should be in West Mesa. I think when it's contained in a smaller area, it's better. And I think the promise of the light rail was that it would bring reinvestment to the area. And I think this is a great project, great example of the type of reinvestment that will bring additional spending dollars. These businesses have fled because there aren't enough dollars in the area to support them. So density, but density of the type that brings people with disposable income is important to rejuvenate the area. So I would like, one, to have that be formalized in the agreement, that the target rents would be for higher end families to address the imbalance that exists in the area. It's heavily imbalanced with lower end and has a good mix of good affordability now, but also has a lot of families in crisis. The skepticism that you see from others and for me and everyone that has lived there is that very few apartment complexes have maintained themselves as high quality places that people would want to live in. There is decay, and it's a concern. We don't need any more stick and stucco places. We need high-end, good-looking developments like this. So I think if we can, address the density, and I think 300 may be appropriate. Maybe 200's better, but it needs to pencil in for the developer. So that's okay. The higher it is, I think the greater that we address concerns like where are these kids going to play that are in this, is there enough green space, enough park space? Parking, where do guests park? If you're going to let someone off, is there a pull-out or a place to turn around? I used to let my daughter off there to go to ASU's Phoenix campus every day. And I can tell you with a lot more density there, it'd be difficult. Of course, I started letting her off at the country club when that opened up. And a couple other concerns would be
Mr.
The
McCaig,
Ownership
we've gone,
Concealment and
if you could
that,
wrap
so-
up, we're a couple minutes over already.
Yes, I apologize. But I think if we address those, that this would be the type of project that would deliver the promise of the light rail. And so I think we should support it with those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Well, actually, we'd like to hear, I think, a relative of yours, Dee Montague. You also wish to speak. You have some reservations.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dee Montague. I live at 553 North Orange Street. I also own a home at 1749 West Argonne, which is just east of Sycamore on the street right adjacent to Webster School. I've owned that home for 6 or 8 years, and it is a rental. The reservations that I have, let me start first by saying that Neil Calfee has been very good at meeting with the neighborhood. I've been to 4 meetings with him. He's been listening. There's some things that he's willing to work with and some other things that we still would like to work on. I had the same reservation expressed about the location of the park and ride. Now for guys like Mr. Boyle that runs marathons barefooted, 800 feet back is not a problem. But for people who are in a hurry, they're not going to go 600 or 800 feet back or more than that for that. And I would like to see it positioned closer to the station, to the drop-off. I have no objection to the townhouse for sale for ownership. I like that component. As long as it's built into the agreement that they be of a standard that would command a $275,000 to $300,000 price, which has been promised to the neighbors that would be the standard. We point out that there's some townhouses on the other side immediately adjacent to Webster School that are about $125,000 prices, the last ones that have sold. So this is a significant jump, and if we delivered that product, it'd be great. No objection to the senior housing. I like the fact that there's that transitional housing for the people recuperating from surgeries or things like that. I am concerned and would like it written into the agreement that it not be turned into an assisted living medical care facility. That is significantly different. We have one of those, the Courtyard Towers on Robeson. There's lots of burden on the neighborhood, which we make visits and give rides and lots of things that add to the level of stress on a neighborhood. One of the things that I heard a presentation by the mayor that we need is higher income residents and we need higher education. We only have 24% of our people in Mesa that are college graduates as compared to 40% in neighboring communities. And so voting yes on question 1 will help raise that. But it's the income level per household. We'd love to have a Sprouts store come over here if the Sprouts people send them our way. We'd love to have it, but they say you need to raise your household income $22,000 per house before we'll come build a Sprouts. We asked them when we lost Fry's and we lost Fresh and Easy. We said, what would it take to get you here? And they said $22,000 per house. So we like the project. I personally think that 200 units in the apartments would be more appropriate. They've come down from 400 that we're starting. I think that again, if it's built into the agreement that the rent targeted are $900 for the smaller ones up to $1,200 like they've been talking about, then that would help take care of the thing. We'd like to have written into there that it not be allowed to be converted to a subsidized housing. I'm concerned personally that if the townhouses, I guess the order of development, the townhouses, I'm not sure somebody's going to want to pay $300,000 when it's sandwiched between a school and a 300-unit apartment building. That's something that the market will have to tell. But if the standard is high, the cost will be high, and it will help solve some of the problems that we've been talking about.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate those comments. Next, we have David Crummy. If you'd like to come forward, you wish to speak. You are in support of the project.
Chair, council, or members of the board. David Crummy, 1339 West First Street. I could go on for an hour. I promise to try and keep under 250.
Well, you're down about 54 now.
I am so excited about my neighborhood, where it's going, where we are in Mesa. We're at the perfect intersection between MCC, Mekong, our historic neighborhood. Hopefully, maybe we can get there soon. Riverview, ASU to our west. We are at the perfect junction. I bought my house we're about 2 blocks from this site about 10 years ago, right before the light rail opened. And I bought it because of the proximity to light rail and proximity to this future development that I was excited to see on the former site of Tri-City Mall. I love the neighborhood, and I moved in after the West Main Street area plan had already been adopted and all the neighbors had gone through. And I read through it, and it's also one of the reasons why I love my neighborhood. It's because it's a community that's committed to setting the stage right for the light rail, the right sides of development. And when you look through the proposed zoning and read through our plan for our neighborhood, this fits exactly with what is proposed. Honestly, this should have been done prior to light rail being open in 2007. I'm happy that it's not, because we get to use form-based code, which I think allows for a much better building type without having to go through this. Right now, the developer, without coming in before planning and zoning, could build almost 500 units of really, I'll call it train wreck urban design, with apartments that would be terrible for the neighborhood and replicate a lot of the things that have not worked in Mesa's past. But I'm really excited with the potential for this zoning, because going from a current zoning that's incompatible with what we know works and with what we know is compatible with our West Main Street area plan that we put in place, also with the general plan, and of course the best practices in transit-oriented development, this really seems to be fit perfectly for this site, for our neighborhood. It will boost our property values in our neighborhood, and I know that that is a worry, that property values could go up too much, and that is something that we need to take a look at, that some of us do live on fixed incomes, and some of us want to sell our houses at some point and get out. But we need to take a look at that, because we are a community. My house, I've lived in it for almost 10 years. My neighbor to the left of me, they bought their house in 1954, and they're still there. To my right, they lived there almost 20 years. I have renters on one side. My kids play on the street until the street lights turn on. It's an amazing neighborhood, and I strongly support the use of the form-based code and the rezoning of this project in support of the West Main Street area plan.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Thank you. Appreciate that. Our last card, this is Jamie Glasser. If you would like to come forward, you have not indicated whether you're in support or opposition to the project.
For the project. My name's Jamie Glasser. I live at 145 West 3rd Place in downtown Mesa, and I am enthusiastically speaking on behalf of Rail Mesa, which stands for, it's a community organization group that started as, I believe, in Mesa's downtown. And it stands for Retail, Arts, Innovation, and Livability. We have community meetings in support of positive changes in Mesa, but also hear the concerns of our neighbors. We would like to, we do collectively completely support and enthusiastically this redevelopment on Sycamore and Main Street for the light rail development, because it does support the vision intent of the West Main Street area plan, and it was developed by the neighbors and the community to support neighborhoods as adopted by the Planning and Zoning Board, Downtown Development Committee, and the City Council. It's aligned with the general plan, and it also uses, of course, the first time Mesa's form-based zoning, which is the best tool that we think also that you have agreed to make sure new development is respectful of the established neighborhoods and provides especially safe walking and livability around the area. It also is the best tool we have for quality transit-oriented development. And I think some of the concerns in general against some of the housing projects we've heard is because people have not yet experienced urban living, or the people that are moving here to live in transit-oriented development and are worried about some negative aspects and are asking about, on other projects, about parking density and things that are actually have been well researched when transit-oriented development comes, and these developers and others have paid attention to those statistics, which are very different than in the past, the kind of development we've had. So we strongly and enthusiastically support this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Okay, that concludes our community input. I'll turn some time back over to the applicant to address some of those issues. I think generally I hear support. There's concern about the parking, park and ride, the distance, some of the uses, the thresholds for values and, things like that. I'm not sure how you want to address all of that.
Well, what I'd like to do is start out by thanking everyone who came out tonight. We went through a fairly extensive public outreach process and had neighbors, concerned, businesses and others come out, and they gave great feedback. When we disagreed, we all disagreed respectively, and I think just this speaks incredibly well for West Mesa and the future of this area, that you've got engaged neighbors who we sat down on many occasions, and we had great conversations, and we were able to really understand each other. And I, again, thank you very much. Going down through this, I think we'll try to, I don't know if there's necessarily a big picture that we can work our way through, but first and foremost, this is a market rate project. No way are we trying to lowball, no way are we trying to come out with lower rents. We understand there's some mistrust by the neighbors, and it's justifiable when you look at the history of the area with projects that when were built were great and over time have deteriorated. That's probably something we can't address. We may want to talk to the city and about what can be done about code compliance and other issues that can deal with that over time. But from our standpoint and where we're at today, this is going to be as nice and as profitable and as high end as we can make it, as much as the market will bear. And so this is not something where we are coming in any way trying to lowball or bait and switch anybody. The challenge right now is to be able to say it's going to be 900 or higher. That's our target, and we'd like to get it as high as we can, because that's what we do. And we are trying to raise the bar in the area. There's concerns about whether or not we sort of feel like we're trying to be Goldilocks here, not too high, not too low, some are right in the middle. But obviously, there's concerns about whether we could get $275,000 for a townhome. We do, we think we do. And we feel very strongly that that's a possibility, because it is new and it's a product that works well in other parts of the valley, and that we have an incredibly strong faith in this neighborhood, probably more than some of the neighbors do. And when you look at what's happening, we feel very good about it, and we're willing to go down this path. So that's really where we come out to it, and I think it's difficult then to say we will agree to any of this by contract. But again, we'll work through the process. We'll have other ways to deal with this, and we'll work with staff to figure out a way that we can make sure that everyone is comfortable with where we're going with this. Some of the issues with the park and ride and the garage location. If you look at where the park and ride now is, or the park and ride location, the parking is in this area right now. We are not materially changing the distances for the parking. Obviously, when you look at where people are parking today, based on the utilization, it is closer to Main, but we're not changing the footprint of that parking lot in any appreciable way that people could park into. And so I understand the concern about trying to create parking as close as possible to the station. That's obviously in conflict then with urban design goals of how do you revitalize these stations and be able to find a balance between good development, utilization of the station, and then park and ride needs. To that end, the issue of what they call a kiss and ride or a drop-off location, that's something we'll work with staff to determine what makes sense, whether it could be on our main spline or another location, because we obviously don't want to burden the adjacent property owners, that they have to then take this burden in the mornings or at night where people are circulating through that don't belong on their site. So that's something that we've discussed with staff, that we have a series of things that we have to work out with Valley Metro and the city to address some of these transit issues. The Traxxas Power substation, there's that shoebox that's sitting there, isn't going anywhere. And we have to deal with maintenance issues. There's things that we have to work through. There'll be some bus lanes that are probably going to be on Main that we have to work through. So these are things that we're committed to. And frankly, we can't move this project forward unless we come to agreement. The city won't allow us. So it is not something that we can go blazing down a path and ignore. The city will have control over that all the way through the process. In terms of the issue of interim parking, the way this will likely phase out is the parking garage will be built first. The surface lot will be maintained in place so that we can maintain the parking ride as needed. So that way we're not going to wholesale, blade all the parking and then build the garage. There will be interim parking. We'll be able to accommodate that. The bus transfer facility will go away and move its location because it's not needed in terms of the amount of buses. So these things will be phased and taken care of, but in no way are we going to shove the parking out onto the streets or into adjacent properties. And same with the bike parking. We'll have plenty of bike parking. It's a matter of just finding the right location, making sure it's done right. But it's obviously our intent to do that. We don't want to mess. You look at some of the projects near issue that haven't done it right, and you got bikes stacked in places and they're adjacent to trees, and it's not good. So we'll obviously take care of that. So I think I dealt with most of it. The other issue of traffic, we've heard from neighbors and very thoughtful neighbors about what's happening in the neighborhood today. Webster School creates some challenges for the neighbors in terms of the way it's being managed. We've heard that teachers are parking on the streets instead of at the school itself. So I think part of this will also be working with staff and the school district to determine what makes the most sense in terms of traffic management and any way that we can assist with that. We'll be circulating buses actually through our site. They do today. We'll be formalizing that so they can route buses through and have permanent access from Webster School out to Dobson. So it's something we want to work with the school district on. And we've committed to the neighbors in our discussion there to do what we can every way possible to support the school. That we understand that the enrollment is an issue and being able to maintain enrollment is important, but there's also things that we can do to help potentially, and we don't want to be presumptive about what the school needs, but we'd like to support the school and find ways that we can help elevate what that school needs and work with the school district. And I know Dee and the folks that we've worked with him are going to hold our feet to the fire, make sure that gets done, and we're happy to do it. So if I missed, I think I got it all, but I'd actually welcome any questions you all may have.
Thank him for bringing the school part. I didn't bring it up, but he's agreed to meet with Mike Cowan, the superintendent. We've got a meeting on the books to do that.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let's see any comments that we have or questions from the board.
Just comments. Are we going to discuss amongst ourselves now, or is it that time to make our comments?
What do you think? Can we get 275?
I see this glossy look in
really?
everybody's eyes. I'm not sure what to do with that. Staff,
really.
Well, it was a lot of good information. Ultimately, I'm a big fan of this project. This is something that I believe is an important part of what's to come in Mesa, and especially as it relates to transit-oriented development. It has a lot of promise. I think ultimately the neighbors are starting to see that, and I hear things. Mr. Montague, I believe, he brought up a reinvestment, almost a revitalization project, one that fills in some of these gaps and allows some change to begin to occur. This is a fairly new concept, both as it relates to the city of Mesa, but as well as a zoning case that is fairly unique in it being form-based. Very exciting. I think ultimately we are only talking right now about a rezoning. So the process of developing this project in each shape and how it's met and how it works with the neighboring community and each little detail, as was stated at the very beginning of this case tonight, that it's a process that we need to work together on. And I think ultimately it will be something that becomes a good precedence.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate those comments. Anybody else?
I'll make a comment
Yes,
as far as planning that is done by the city in this area. And was extensive community outreach and building the plan of what we wanted our downtown to look like, especially along the light rail and the transit-oriented development. And I think this project is in accordance with that plan, that the community and neighbors had their input and their vision and made this plan. And I think this project is in alignment with that. I'm very excited about it, and I think it fulfills the vision that the citizens have for this area.
Thank you so much. I just had the thought, ultimately, the market will decide what this looks like. And I have to agree with the developers. You're not in here to come up with average or low-end incomes. It's about making this as shiny and desirable as possible to maximize returns, because it's a very expensive project. I mean, all of those components I saw you look at, and they're extremely pricey, so it will, assuming all the players come to place and the capital's in place to support this, it will do a great job towards stimulating the neighborhood in, I believe, a very positive fashion. And I also think refinements will come as you continue down the path. This is just really the start in that direction. So that's my 2 cents worth. Michelle?
I live about 3 miles from this area, and I have been here since 2001, and I'm really excited to see this project. And I think not only just the product, but the fact that there's a mechanism in place that our staff has to really fine-tune this and work with you and work with the neighbors. And I hope the neighbors know that our staff is here to, I think, work through these issues you have, especially your concerns with parking. Maybe there's things you can do, such as signage on adjacent properties. The city can work with neighbors to make sure people know that they can't park there, that there's parking that's going to be available on the transit site. I mean, I don't know if that's, our attorney's looking at me a little, oh, okay. Just, I'm thinking there's some things that we might be able to do to help the adjacent property owners with their concerns with this project. But I agree with what all of the other board members say. I'm really excited and confident our staff will do a great job with the development agreement and with the process in place as this project continues to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
I just wanted to add, I agree. I think the project is great. I believe it was Tyler who had mentioned, he was just really excited about the location, just being so close to everything, and I think that's the big draw. But I also think that what's so great about it is the fact that you saw the public investment, you know, along light rail, and now you're seeing the private side come in. You're seeing all these funds coming in, so everybody else is seeing the same, you know, possibilities of what it could be. In addition to that, and just with the landowners, you're going to see the users come in and the shopping, and you're going to see all that continue to grow and more people feed into the funds for this area. And I think it's going to really just add to Mesa a lot and revitalize in what people think of as West Mesa and the downtown area as well.
Thank you, Jessica. All right. Well, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
Chair, members of the board, I
Yes.
just wanted to make one comment.
Thank you.
There was some discussion this evening from some of the comments made tonight about possibly formalizing the target rent amounts in the development agreement. And I just wanted to let you know that that's something that the city cannot do. There's some statutory provisions that do not allow the city to do that. So I just wanted to make it clear on the record that that is something that we would not be able to include in the development agreement.
Thank you for that clarification. In reality, that would not be very reasonable because ultimately the market will determine. You can't force the market to do something it doesn't
Correct.
want to do. Thank you, though. Okay, well, at this point, if someone will,
I'd like to make a recommendation for approval for Z16-046 in District 3, 1800 block of West Main Street in the north side, 100 block of North Dobson Road, east side, and 100 block of North Sycamore, west side, District 3. I'd like to recommend approval with the staff recommendation of approval with conditions. And is there anything else that I need to include?
no, that's fine. That's great. So I'll take is there a second on this motion?
I'll make a second.
A little slow there, Steve.
Okay.
You need to speak. Fall asleep.
All right, I'll second.
What's that?
Second.
Oops. Well, anyway, we got 2 seconds, so
Yeah.
I guess we're doing just good. So any further discussion? Okay, please vote. Okay. Motion carries unanimous among those qualified to vote. Is there anything else that needs to come forward at this meeting? Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It's looked like you've already come to that conclusion. It's time to go home.
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you,
adjourn, Mr.
Michelle.
Chairman.
Can I get it?
I second that. I second that motion.
Steve, you're asleep again.